From the high desert and the great American Southwest, I bid you all good evening, or good morning, as the case may be, across all these many prolific time zones, from the Hawaiian and Tahitian Islands in the west, eastward to the Caribbean and the U.S. Virgin Islands, south into South America. We're going to be talking about South America and the Caribbean, north to the pole, worldwide on the Internet. This is Coast to Coast AM. Good morning. I'm Art Bell. Well, it's good evening and good morning. Anyway, hi there. We've got an interesting program coming up for you as we begin a brand new week. Scott Corrales is going to be my guest, and I'm probably mispronouncing his last name, and he sent me a very nice a bio, and I'm not going to read it. If I were to read this, I would destroy every Spanish name in it. Now, Scott is born of Cuban parents, I can tell you that, lived in Mexico City from 1968 to 1975, and then moved to Puerto Rico in 1975, remaining there until 1982. Scott is here to talk about a new book he has written called Chupacabras and Other Mysteries. Ah, the Chupacabra. You know how I feel about the Chupacabra. I'm intrigued. I have always wondered if it really could be, if this creature, this mystical question mark creature, could really be out there. Chupacabra. The one thing I do know is it means goat sucker. Anyway, he's written a book about it, so he ought to be the guy to ask, and that's exactly what we're going to do here in a few moments. And other mysteries as well. Let me get a couple of announcements out of the way and a couple of things, and then we'll talk to Scott and we'll make him pronounce all the Spanish names in his bio here. All right, first of all, a big switch in San Diego. Big time switch. From KFMB back home to Kogo. AM 600 in San Diego, KOGO. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are back home. Kogo will be carrying the program 7 days a week. 7 days a week. Sunday Dreamland will come to you 10 to 1 in the beginning, and no doubt we'll get that down to the 6 o'clock time eventually, because everything has moved forward 1 hour. But we are home, back at Kogo. It will take a few people in San Diego a little while to realize that, but coming home. Now, welcome also to KSPT in Sandpoint, Idaho, 1400 on the AM dial. Would like to welcome you to the program. Great to have, great to have both, and to be back on Kogo, of course, in San Diego. So there's going to be a little bit of dial whiplash going on down in the southern part of California, but I presume people will adjust. Well, all right, Scott Corrales, I can tell you, attended Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey. I can tell you that he was an office research assistant, an executive aide, a personnel manager, an industrial engineer. But I'm not going to tell you much more, because a lot of it gets into Spanish names, and I will embarrass myself, Scott. Welcome to the program.
Good evening, Art. How you doing?
I'm just fine. For you, it should be morning. You're back somewhere in Pennsylvania, right, or New York?
That's correct, Bradford, PA.
Okay. Scott, what led you into an interest to our friend, the Chupacabra?
I think I've always been interested in the paranormal manifestations associated with the UFO phenomenon. Since I read John Keel's book, The Mothman Prophecies, back in the mid-'70s, when Chupacabras came around, or along rather, it was just the culmination of a number of strange events taking place in Puerto Rico for a number of years. The Chupacabras wave matured in 1995, but if you go back to 1991, you were already getting the mysterious mutilations of domestic animals.
All right. We were not hearing about it back then, were we?
No, you were not. Not at all. Part of the problem is that this was simply considered domestic consumption by the island media. Of course, in 1989, you'd had the infamous fanged bird or vampire bird known as the Chupacabras, which caused some confusion. And that was considered the source of many of the mutilations at the time.
It's already confusing me. In other words, there was a bird that was thought to do these mutilations?
Yes, indeed. Back in 1989, this bird, or rather number, of very strange fanged birds was found on the island. These birds howled, allegedly, and they had reptilian characteristics. And certainly they caused a great deal of confusion among the population.
Well, is it not true that birds are thought to be the modern ancestors of dinosaurs?
I believe I've heard that in National Geographic somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you that some of the birds out here in the area where I live look absolutely prehistoric. I mean, they look like throwbacks. They're gigantic. And when they want a movie with a really evil-looking bird, they come out here to Pahrump, Nevada, where I am, and they get them. They're gigantic. And they do look evil. At any rate, you said when you began commenting that you thought it was connected to the UFO phenomenon, or you suggested that it was connected to the UFO phenomenon. By that I mean the Chupacabra. But in fact, you don't really think it's connected to UFOs, do you?
I've always felt that this is a strictly paranormal phenomenon in the same way that the Mothman was, that the Lizard Man in North Carolina. It belongs to that order of manifestations. But then again, I also believe that the UFO phenomenon, far from extraterrestrial, is also of paranormal origin. Well,
Mothman and the rest of them, I don't know about those so much as I do the Chupacabra. I do know this. I've watched Spanish TV. I know you must know Linda Howe.
I certainly do. I've had the pleasure.
All right. Linda has been heavily investigating Chupacabra now for some time. And it seems very real, Scott. I mean, there are hundreds of animals that have died that they have documented. I've seen them on TV.
I think it's most definitely real. Not only the number of animals in 5 different countries that have been shown and researched, and veterinarians have autopsied, and
exactly.
The whole 9 yards.
Exactly.
You also have the fact that the testimony is more often than not unimpeachable. Simply, these people have no idea why this has happened to them, why their livelihoods have been affected in such a manner.
Well, when people hear about the Chupacabra, they chuckle and laugh. But in Mexico, for example, you don't get a lot of really good reactions when you talk about the Chupacabra. In other words, they're not laughing in Mexico.
Precisely, nor were they laughing in Puerto Rico when things started there, nor were they laughing in December when the phenomenon moved on to Spain.
Spain?
Yes, indeed. In December 1996.
Spain?
Yes, indeed. Spain and Portugal.
And Portugal?
Researcher Bruno Cardeñosa looked into not only the mutilation, but outright disappearance of entire flocks of sheep in Zaragoza, I believe. And the Chupacabras was actually invoked by the authorities as the culprit.
It was noted as the culprit by the authorities?
Yes, they had said, well, whatever is causing this cannot be X, Y, or Z. They enumerated the wildlife of Spain. Spain has no bears. Spain does not have any wolves anymore. So the attack seemed to match what was going on in the Caribbean and in Central America. And they figured, well, this could be the Chupacabras.
Well, do you believe that Chupacabra began in Puerto Rico?
To all indications, yes. This would have been in March of 1995 when a reporter for the WKAQ TV station first started to inform his audience of what was going on in Orocovis, which is a town municipality in the center of the island. A number of sheep had been found completely drained of blood. People were seeing strange entities running around, entities corresponding to what we've come to know as the gray aliens, quote unquote.
Well, here we go. UFO connection.
Exactly. That's where you start getting this gray area, no pun intended, involving strange creatures, manifestations of earlier aberrant beings that were never seen again during the Chupacabra's waves, tree-dwelling greys, for lack of a better description.
Tree-dwelling
greys that emitted sibilant sounds and could mesmerize people.
Let us tell everybody what we believe a chupacabra looks like, based on a compilation of the descriptions or any photographs that exist. Oh, by the way, Scott, are there any what you would consider legitimate photographs of the chupacabra?
Not known to me. I don't think there's been a single photo. However, I think that the chupacabras has attracted a cottage industry of its own in hoax photographs.
Oh, I have any number of photographs on my website, and I treasure each and every one of them in their own way. But there's none that I would say, there it is, that's absolutely a chupacabra.
No, I feel that the best indication we have to go as to its image remains the identikit image put together by researcher Jorge Martin back in 95, based on the eyewitness testimony.
What do we think? If there was a chupacabra standing right in front of me, what would I be seeing?
If what you saw matched the description given by all the other witnesses,
exactly,
you'd see a creature with a kangaroo-like body, a humanoid head with wraparound red eyes, would appear to be very small quills, vibrating quills running down its back, very scrawny, almost useless forearms, and certainly a membrane under its arms that enables it to fly. However, before we start saying that it flies like a bird, let's clarify that by saying that it has been seen to float in the air and take off.
To float? Well, now, to float, that's not flying.
Not flying, but nonetheless people say it has wings, quote-unquote. It has a membrane under its arms. People have seen it float. They've seen it float across highways. They have seen it float into pens to extract animals. But nonetheless, I think people like to think, well, if it has wings, it's flying. So therefore, flight comes into question.
Well, but floating is paranormal. Things don't float. They don't suspend in the air without apparent means of aerodynamic.
I agree with you. It's just that flight has become a commonplace term to describe its motion in the air. People think, well, if it's in the air, it's flying. Therefore, you get so many descriptions. It flew here, it flew there, it flew over us, it landed in my backyard, and so forth.
But they don't note it flapping its wings.
It has never been seen flapping its wings. Certainly, if it had wings, they could not sustain its weight. So whatever mechanism it's using to levitate, for want of a better term, has nothing to do with the little membranes under its arms.
All right. What about its basic, teeth, fangs?
The original drawing showed it as not having fangs. Then other witnesses said, yes, it has fangs, protruding fangs, and its most distinctive feature, what appears to be a proboscis of some sort that comes out of its mouth and is suspected to be the instrument used to puncture the animals which are later exsanguinated.
All right. Well, now we get into what I consider to be pretty serious stuff. In other words, these animals, I've heard various descriptions of how they've been killed, but basically it comes down to this. They have puncture wounds in their neck. Outside, somehow there's more. I can't remember. Linda said there were 2 puncture wounds, I believe, on the outside, and then some other kind of puncture wound on the inside. Is that correct?
If I recall correctly, if you look at the photos of the victims, you can see that one single puncture mark, the instrument, whatever you want to call this proboscis, seems to have gone straight in through the organs, and sometimes piercing the organs, sometimes pushing them aside, as it tried to drain blood. In many cases, we now hear that the creature has left its victims perfectly hollow.
Hollow? That
is, it's taking organs as well. How this can be accomplished is truly beyond the understanding of zoology. Certainly there's no natural creature capable of doing these things.
And yet, in fact, the autopsies have shown this to be the case. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
In other words, that's the most horrible thing I've ever heard. In other words, it literally sucks everything from its victim as one would somehow suck an egg from a little tiny hole?
That's a pretty good description, yes.
Yuck. How many animals, Scott, have been so affected? If you were to, put together a compilation of everything from, the whole time.
I think the range of creatures has run the gamut from racehorses in one incident to household cats and dogs. And if we tried to find a total, for Puerto Rico at least you'd have well over 1,000 animals.
1,000 animals.
For Mexico, I'm not quite sure, nor for Central America.
Okay.
In Spain, they number in the hundreds.
In the hundreds?
Hundreds of sheep, yes.
Now, surely the veterinarians who do the autopsies have got to say something. I mean, they come back and either all of the blood or all of the internal organs of these animals are missing. What do they say?
Well, I think that the Department of Agriculture in Puerto Rico was steadfast in saying that this is just predator damage. These are either dogs or feral monkeys causing this kind of damage, flying in the face of the evidence, of course.
Has anybody ever seen a feral monkey do this?
Apparently there have been troops of feral monkeys in Puerto Rico since a certain laboratory conducting experiments shut down or released a certain number of them into wilderness. And they have apparently managed to coexist with the local wildlife.
Yes,
and,
but would they have the ability, physical ability, to do to these animals what has been done? No, nor certainly would wild dogs. However, I think it's the most convenient explanation, and it's the explanation that seemed to satisfy the endless, filling of bureaucratic reports. Well, it doesn't satisfy me. I'm not a scientist, Scott, but if something has been done like the removal of all internal organs or all blood, as far as I knew, Scott, the only thing that would take blood would be a bat. Now, they've got vampire bats. They're real. But they bite their victim, and then they lap up the blood. They don't suck all the blood out.
That's correct. And that also brings us to another interesting feature of chupacabras. Many times it would leave a very thick lather on its victims, even those that it probably had not quite gotten a chance to drain of blood quite yet.
A lather?
A lather, yes. A very thick, viscous substance, which had many people thinking, well, yes, this is probably some sort of giant vampire bat that's come from South America. And, of course, you had a lot of the peasantry speculating as well, yes, well, we get a lot of strange things coming from Venezuela, things come in cargo ships, etc. So I think throughout the ordeal, you have the average person is trying to find a quote-unquote rational explanation.
Yes. Well, maybe there is not one. Scott, hold on. We're at the bottom of the hour. We'll be right back. Back now to Scott Corrales, his book, soon to come out. Not out, by the way, Chupacabras and Other Mysteries. When will your book be available, incidentally?
July 4th.
July 4th?
That's correct. That's a patriotic date.
It certainly is. Is it going to be available generally in bookstores, or will it be a number to call, or what?
It will be available in bookstores.
All right. Back to the Chupacabra. You have described this animal. What about the claws? It said three claws. Is that correct?
That's correct. No one's ever seen it using them for any purpose. Apparently, its modus operandi for attacking animals is heavily based on mesmerizing them and then proceeding to use this proboscis that it has, which in fact gave the chupacabras the name sacalenguas, or tongue sticker outer, in Central America. Because that's exactly what I guess caught people's attention the most.
Yes, well, that's when you begin losing your organs and your blood, so it would get your attention. Has this animal, Scott, attacked any humans?
The very first reported human attack was in May of '96. The victim was a woman named Theodora Ayala in Mexico. But otherwise, there have been no attacks on humans. People claim to have been pursued by the chupacabras, as in the case of two fishermen in Canóvanas, Puerto Rico. But fortunately, it's never demonstrated an interest in humans. It seems to concentrate on on animals, which, curiously enough, and if you can allow a little bit of levity into the matter, was explained by a psychic who invited himself into Chupacabra's research, saying that human blood had too many toxins in it. And Chupacabras preferred something less polluted.
Really? Great. It sounds real, I'm afraid. No doubt we have toxins that would kill the little beastie. The other worrisome thing that I've heard about a chupacabra is its ability to go, some people have said, 50, 60 miles per hour. Is there anything to that?
That's the first time I've heard. Certainly. I'd never heard that it had an endurance record or speed record either. Most of the cases that I've read about, the cases that I had the pleasure of assisting Jorge Martin with when I was in Puerto Rico, seemed to just involve the creature appeared, was either heard in the night emitting these horrifying screams.
Screams.
But no one ever saw it actually committing the crimes until much later. A gentleman named Daniel Santos saw it landing in its backyard, simply came out of the sky, making a buzzing sound, rested on top of a boulder for a while before taking off again.
Mm-hmm.
But no one ever clocked it as it was flying by or anything.
There are people who claim they have seen it scurrying across the road or by the road. Many human sightings.
That is very correct. I think the very first sighting of that sort was in Canóvanas, where some people were waiting for the bus in the early afternoon, and they thought they saw a dog running toward them on all fours. And it happened to be the Chupacabras. People have seen it scurrying across Highway 3 in Puerto Rico, both daytime and at night. And I believe the same applies in Mexico. People have actually seen it engaging in, chicken crossing the road kind of behavior. However, at this point, I just want to add, the variety of sightings in Mexico became wildly different from the sightings in Puerto Rico at one point, where you actually had federales and municipal policemen taking pot shots at a gigantic winged humanoid creature, something like a Bigfoot with wings almost. And this creature was jumping fences and eluding the police. So we were getting a variety of different entities being seen in Mexico at some point. And even a bona fide vampire bat called the Vampiro spectri, which apparently has a tremendous wingspan, was also being seen in southern Mexico at the time. So whereas the Puerto Rican situation was rather controlled, you had the one perpetrator to deal with. Mexico was a free fire area. I
take it you saw Jurassic Park.
I certainly have, yes.
I happen to know for a fact that our governments in general, have been experimenting with some rather unsavory things. What possibility is there that these animals, these aberrations, are out of a laboratory somewhere? Rejects in some sort of perverted genetic research?
Well, we could start by saying that the island of Puerto Rico has always been used for all kinds of research.
Right.
Radiation, thalidomide, all kinds of nasty things have been tested there. So it would not be surprising, given the track record, that such a thing could be produced there, although to what purpose remains a big question. What would anyone gain?
Well, what do we gain by cloning, Scott?
Well, I guess cloning, to digress here, would be probably a good way of someday being able to clone certain organs to reproduce organs for people who need transplants, etc. However, there has been talk, and certainly the book Chupacabras does mention this, a gentleman who claimed to have seen Chupacabras in Arizona or New Mexico in the 1950s.
Yeah. Oh, in the 50s?
In the 50s, that's correct.
In the 50s?
In the 50s. The gentleman claims that he was a military policeman and that these creatures had actually been part of the quote-unquote cargo manifest of a crashed UFO. And
See, here we go again. Now, you're kind of jumping around here with regard to the UFO connection.
I'm trying to avoid it as much as possible.
Well,
it keeps on coming up.
Well, is there a connection? I mean, what chance is there? You're leaning against it, but you kind of keep coming back to it.
Okay, Dr. Rafael Lara, who's, I think, one of Mexico's foremost investigators in the Chupacabra subject, clearly said that at no point during the Chupacabra sightings in his country was there a single UFO sighting, and happening anywhere near where the events were taking place.
Well, on the other hand, if a UFO dispensed or disgorged some, it may well be they began to mate and move. So
that's also very possible. However, in Puerto Rico, we do get cases of UFO activity and Chupacabra's presence. But just to go back to the gentleman with the story about New Mexico or Arizona for a minute, he said the creatures developed a taste for blood and for sheep after being fed these animals. I guess they were in some sort of reservation up there where sheep were being raised or what have you. And this was a taste that developed as one animal they seemed to be able to consume without any problem. And it was a breeding pair, according to his testimony.
Well, again, I go back to the hard evidence. Hundreds, if not thousands, of animals with either their blood or all their organs gone. Is it not incumbent on those veterinarians that have done the autopsies to not put it off on dogs or some other thing because these animals could not do what is being done?
Well, I'd just like to clarify that perhaps by saying you have any kind of state-sponsored veterinarian was, I guess, hedging his bets by using the ape and dog explanation. But you had medical photographers from the College of Medicine in Puerto Rico coming out and saying this is impossible.
Right.
You cannot have a 2-ton bull having all its blood, its liver, its heart extracted through a single orifice.
Exactly. In other words, here we've got our government saying UFOs are swamp gas or they're flares or one thing or another, and we can argue about it till the cows come home, pun intended.
If they do.
Exactly. Or not. That's fine. Flares over Phoenix, whatever. But here we've got animals with wounds and autopsies performed showing things that are absolutely impossible with any terrestrial explanation.
However, I think there's also the concern, will this information cause a panic? And in Puerto Rico, I think that the information was terrifying to the farmers. But to city dwellers who never go to the countryside except on a holiday, it was simply yet another story to make fun of. And this is where the sociological phenomenon kicked off, of Chupacabra's T-shirts and Chupacabra's songs like the one you just played.
Mm-hmm.
And it became simply a term of abuse and also a term of endearment on television shows. So city dwellers who'd never had direct experience or watched beloved pets or needed animals die a horrible death could make light of it, and I think that's the case with all city dwellers.
Well, I guess you could suggest when you watch a lion tear its prey apart, it's a horrible death. So in a way, if there's a chupacabra preying on animals, mainly, out there, how does it really differ from a lion that rips its prey apart? I mean, other than the fact that this obviously is a big mystery, it may be the paranormal, it may be UFOs or whatever, but it's still one animal killing another.
It seems to me that, I'll just speak for the Puerto Rican reaction for a minute. This had happened before. People had been there, quote unquote, before, in the 1970s with the Mocha vampire, as it became known.
What was that?
It was a creature, was never seen. No drawings were made, no photos were taken, but for an entire year, from 1974 to 75, it killed almost as many animals as chupacabras. It had the same paranormal look and feel to it, and it later moved its activities to Santo Domingo, where it was also created great consternation among the peasantry.
Well, anything we don't understand, we are like likely to ascribe to the paranormal? I mean, to us, it's magic, right? We don't understand it. No science explains it. So we either write it off and lie in reports, or, well, I'm just, I'm trying to figure out. First of all, you do believe they're real, don't you? In other words,
I do.
Okay.
There's no doubt in my mind.
No doubt. But you lean toward the paranormal explanation.
Yes, indeed. Simply because of the way that the creature, as with other paranormal manifestations, like the Mocha vampire just mentioned,
right,
they seem to run a course of 12 months to 18 months. They appear, they kill animals, they create a sensation, then the sightings either end abruptly or they peter out before being both ignored by the media and ignored by the peasantry after a while. And this is exactly what happened to West Virginia's Mothman back in the 60s. It appeared for exactly 13 months before disappearing. It was never seen again in the area.
So, then, might these creatures be, here is another explanation, dimensional?
Well, I think the dimensional explanation would dovetail quite neatly with the paranormal. Because they would be coming in from another dimension, another level of energy, another reality, whatever term we want to give it, as opposed to being dropped here from another star system or being part of the cargo manifest of some downed UFO.
Well, think about this then. If it goes one way, maybe it goes the other. And maybe on the other side, these horrible creatures called dogs, from time to time, pop in. And cats. Oh my God, cats.
I'd hate to be on the other side to see them, so.
Yeah, there you are. In other words, things they have never seen on the other side.
But then again, if you want to add the third explanation, which seems to raise out of people's hackles, is simply black magic. Remember, sorcery is heavily practiced in the area. And as we have come to know, certain ceremonies appear to be very effective in producing what are known as elementals or simply summonings.
Well, let me tell you something. This last weekend, nobody knows it, but I was in Mexico. How about that, folks? And we went into what we thought was a natural food store. And there was an altar there, Scott. Clearly, it was some sort of witchcraft that was being practiced. I did not stop. I did not ask. In fact, I got out of there rather quickly.
That was prudent, yes.
One portion of the store was devoted to some kind of an altar with some sort of a being or creature that was obviously being worshipped at the center. Do you have any idea what I might have seen?
No, that sounds, and I'm just taking a stab in the dark, that sounds like a very benign Santeria altar.
Santeria, huh?
Yes.
Well, what was in the center of this altar did not look benign.
That I wouldn't know. That I wouldn't speculate. But yes, there are darker manifestations of Santeria, and they are practiced in the Caribbean, and certainly in Puerto Rico is no exception.
Do you believe in magic?
I've seen rituals perform, and I'm afraid that there's something to it.
Aha!
And
give me an example of something you have seen.
I've simply seen the effect it's had on people present at ceremonies who had no connection whatsoever to this kind of worship. I've seen people who are skeptical, let's say detached observers, fall under the influence of, let's say, the rhythmical drum beating and so forth in a Santeria ceremony. And it leads them to believe, I've having been there, having not fallen under the spell of whatever was going on, that certain people either are quite susceptible to any kind of manipulation or that something was actually happening there.
Well, could it be that one of these ceremonies could bring some sort of elemental creature from there, wherever there is, to here?
That is certainly a possibility. The more we learn about the ritual magic and what it's designed to accomplish, certainly that's one of the possibilities. However, I bring this up last, always, because of the reaction it has on most people. People don't mind hearing about government experiments or genetic freaks run amok or UFOs dropping things off in the countryside, But when it comes to the role of ritual magic in these things, people say, no, wait a minute, we've already gone beyond the fringe.
Well,
we're...
I don't feel that way. I think it's entirely possible. Let me tell you something. There was a CNN USA poll done over the weekend, and 64%, I believe, of the American people say aliens have, in fact, in their opinion, contacted humans. Get this now. 80% of all Americans say they believe the U.S. government is hiding information on alien contact. That's 8 out of 10.
I'm not surprised. Not at all.
You're not?
No. Either, it doesn't matter, this is just a purely personal opinion, whether their perceptions are warranted or not. I think the media has played a crucial role in shaping this opinion. Simply, our programs like the X-Files and what have you. The government is up to tricks. Things are being kept from us. And this is actually just a viewpoint.
So you think it's Hollywood that has formed this?
To a certain extent, the public reaction, yes. It does not detract from the phenomenon being real, however.
Well, as we get reports of microbial life in rocks from Mars, the likelihood of one of Jupiter's moons harboring life under what we now know to be or think to be a sea, water on the moon, all these other announcements, it's no wonder that people think they're being conditioned. I'm not so sure they're not. Stand by. We'll be right back to you. Well, there it is. You wouldn't want to meet that in the middle of the night, in the middle of the forest. No way.
Certainly not.
Now, that's a pretty horrible sound. Is that what people describe?
I would say that's pretty blood-curdling and awful to me, so I think it could be close. However, you now mentioned Bigfoot. There have been Bigfoot sightings in Puerto Rico as well.
Uh-huh.
And certainly, at the height of the Chupacabra sightings, there was also a Bigfoot attack on a human, or rather a sort of a tussle.
Well, see, here we are again. Now, the Bigfoot is variously said to be also something related to UFOs. Bigfoot is considered by many to be, in effect, a missing link, surviving as best it can. But, it has the same qualities as a chupacabra in that it will disappear. Just gone.
Absolutely. And certainly out here in Pennsylvania, we have our own Bigfoot sightings, and that sound has certainly, that you played is certainly a mainstay of many Bigfoot conventions and conferences out here. And it has the same qualities. It disappears. It appears not to behave as animals are supposed to behave. And I think most researchers are in agreement that, yes, the Pennsylvania Bigfoot, or the East Coast Bigfoot, if you will, is definitely not a physical creature.
Not a physical creature?
Not a physical creature. No, not at all.
So again, then, the paranormal or UFOs.
But in Puerto Rico, you have it has the almost unpronounceable name of Comecogollos, which means the eater of soft banana plants. I was seen back in the 80s and then seen again, on and off. And it appears to be only interested in the pursuance of vegetarian habits. It's never really gone around killing any animals.
Vegetarians, they're fine.
But people have seen it. There have been photos taken of it, and of course, it belongs to the blurry quality photo category.
Well, I still think these things might have come out of labs somewhere. I've got this horrible feeling. I mean, I just know, Scott. I know, for example, right now in the Bahamas, despite what our president has said, there is a company that for $200,000 will clone a human being. Now, if they're doing that, imagine the experimentation that must have been going on privately in labs and by governments in places like Puerto Rico.
Well, I concur wholeheartedly there. Particularly, I think we were informed by television a couple of years ago just the extent that genetic research had finally achieved. I remember people being completely shaken by a photo in Time magazine of a mouse with a human ear growing out of its back.
I've got that photograph, and I try not to look at it.
And this also dovetails with an article in the Russian magazine Aura Z concerning the research of Dr. Xian Kanchen. I just mutilated his name right there. And he apparently could, by radiation, superimpose chromosomes in different animals. So he was creating half-rabbit, half-duck creatures.
See, there we go. Now,
and no photographs of these creatures are available.
Yeah, isn't it logical then that something would have been created in a lab someplace, and much like in Jurassic Park, one or two get loose, and that's all it takes?
It's certainly one of the theories. I don't think we should dismiss it out of hand. And certainly, if, let's say, breeding pair managed to make it into the wilderness, the powers that be would be very interested in finding out, how they're making out and what response they're having on the population.
Tell me, is the Chupacabra gone now? Are we getting any fresh reports, or is the creature gone?
The creature went into abeyance after January of '96. It then staged a resurgence in the spring and began mutilating animals and left a strong smell of sulfur wherever it went.
Sulfur? To
the point of nauseating media photographers and policemen, civil defense workers. Then it sort of just petered out, and researcher Willie Duran, who's down in Puerto Rico, tells me that, yes, they keep on getting cases, the mutilations are still happening, but the creature has not been seen again. Just its handiwork.
What does that suggest?
To my mind, as I said, we go right back to the paranormal thing. These creatures tend to just either stop abruptly or peter out after a while. Or perhaps just reduce their level of activity to a maintenance level in which a number of animals are killed here and there. Little calling cards are left. If you recall when we started the show, I was telling you back in 1991, you already had reports of, let's say, a dozen goats being killed, 50 rabbits here, 50 ducks there.
Right.
And yet it never transcended to anything greater than that until 1995. So perhaps there's always a low level of animal mutilations going on. And that it simply reverted to this, what would you call it?
It's not unreasonable because, Scott, have you followed the way the Ebola virus operates? It suddenly emerges, good word, and kills a town, a city, an area, and then dies off, not to be heard from again, until the next outbreak. Kind of weird, huh?
It certainly is. It also has apparently a little refractory period of its own.
Exactly. And one can only imagine that it sits there and it waits for some contact by humans, or it becomes active in its own way at a certain point. We have no way of knowing about Ebola and why it comes and why it goes any more than we do the Chupacabra.
And I think you can also, it does point to the cyclical nature. I said we go back to the Mocha vampire, how it appeared, how then it disappeared. We have Chupacabras now in the mid-90s. Perhaps in the 2016s or thereabout, we're going to get another major outbreak of sightings, if it does seem to follow this pattern. It's certainly animal mutilations at large. I know that Linda Howe's written about this at length. Do follow a cyclical pattern over the decades. Outbursts throughout the world, repeating themselves in different countries, as if following a rotation of some sort.
Well, there is Santeria. Now, a lot of people say you can attribute these mutilations to devil worship of one sort or another. What do you say?
I say we cannot discount that possibility at all. Certainly, I know that one of the big concerns in Mexico, at least this concern was voiced by the director of the Chapultepec Zoo in Mexico City, was not as much that the Chupacabras itself would attack their animals, but that certainly ritual worshippers would try to perform similar rites on zoo animals. And the zoo director pointed to a biblical passage in which a certain instrument is used, which produces a wound that could be quite similar to what Chupacabra does. I can't recall exactly what her words were, but they were to that effect.
Well, so that is possible. In other words, there is a scientific way to do what this animal is said to do.
There certainly is. As I said, we cannot, at this point, I don't think it's, the healthiest thing to do is just consider every single alternative that's being postulated without subscribing to any particular one, because we may be wrong in the end, logically.
You remember you were joking a little while ago about the Chupacabra not going after human beings because our blood might be too toxic for them?
That's correct, yes.
Is it not also possible that same toxic level might be producing these aberrations?
Well, if we're going to move into the realm of toxins, then we should also talk about radiation.
Sure.
The Chupacabras has left a considerable radiation signature in Puerto Rico and in Guatemala.
Now, the first time I've heard this.
Well, this is, I guess, some information that I just acquired in recent months. Apparently, back in '95, during the Orocovi stage of Chupacabra's activity, civil defense workers were finding readings in excess of background radiation, which I believe is 10 rads, or 10 millirads. I'm not exactly sure of the measurement. And it was enough to prompt civil defense workers to say, let's get out of here. The situation is getting ugly.
Really?
However, they were quite remiss in not telling the farmers, do not approach this animal, it's radioactive. Or it has been irradiated in some way, shape, or form. Now, Dr. Oscar Padilla in Guatemala, his research also turned up this radiation signature as left behind by this creature. And if we want to invoke, I guess, the paranormal again, or the interdimensional theory, rather, you have a theory posited by John Keel in 1978 in his book, The Eighth Tower, in which he says that these manifestations perhaps require a heavier element when they manifest in our dimension, and they choose a dense radioactive material, perhaps even plutonium. And as they break down from being in our own reality, they disintegrate and eventually do disappear. But they leave a considerable amount of radiation as they move along. Certainly, one of the main complaints voiced by stateside researchers was a lack of strong scientific information. Let's say radiation readings, soil samples, blood samples, hair samples. And now we're getting information that, yes, indeed, there were Geiger counter readings. Yes, indeed, there were soil samples. Mm-hmm. Yes, you had people in Central America also conducting these things. But due to the fact that Latin America has gotten this terrible rap as the place where people have heads growing out from under their arms over the years, anything coming from south of the border seems to be cast aside, ridiculed, or just plain ignored.
There was a period of time, though, when people here stopped laughing, at least in the Southwest, because we began to experience mutilations that, in fact, had sightings of the Chupacabra ourselves, some in California, New Mexico, Arizona, these areas, and so the laughter quieted down for quite a while. People didn't know what to make of it. But then that abated.
Well, that's certainly the healthy response. I think once people have been subjected to the phenomenon or know people who've suffered losses on account of it or may have even had sightings.
Americans really don't know. The truth of the matter is that when you go down into Mexico, the Chupacabra is not at all treated the way it is here. We laugh, we joke, we make songs like the one I played. We make T-shirts and all the rest of it, and for that matter, some of that may be going on in Mexico, but the average Mexican is not humored at all by these stories, are they?
No, simply because of the periodicity of these things. These things have happened before. They've always happened. Certainly, a country like Mexico has had this centuries-old tradition about shapeshifters,
elementals,
the nahuales, as they're called, This is not a laughing matter. People have always feared the village sorcerer, the village witch, the person who can, quote-unquote, shed their skin and assume an animal form. So we can dismiss these things as folklore or just something for the anthropologist to write his PhD dissertation on. But this is something that people have always considered part and parcel of their reality. And in fact, this is something that Spanish investigator Salvador Clexedo has said for years. We have so many words in the vocabulary of every single country for elves, fairies, pixies, vampires, etc. So many words for creatures that ostensibly do not exist in every single language that it does make one wonder why we have all these words for things that are often dismissed as childish or just being the product of fantasy or what have you.
I remember when I was a kid, I thought there was a monster in the closet, and I still keep my closet door closed at night before I go to sleep because of that, Scott. Dumb, huh? That's a carryover from childhood. I still don't like open closets because I know there are things in there. And so one other possibility that I've always wondered about is the monster from the id. In other words, the possibility that we create our own monsters, or that it is possible. We know so little about the human brain. It is so powerful, it can do so many things that we don't know about, that is it not possible that, in effect, we create them ourselves?
No, that's probably the most fascinating aspect of the phenomenon. Are we developing, let's say, the ability that the Tibetan monks allegedly have of creating tulpas, thought forms,
yes,
which are quite solid and can respond, can interact with physical creatures and leave an impression on the physical world around them?
Exactly.
That is a fascinating possibility. However, you can't tell a farmer that an archetype or creature from the id just punched a hole in one of his animals. So that's a very hard one to get people to accept or even consider. But it's truly fascinating. If, as a society, we're now creating our own, very much like, and I hate to invoke science fiction, but the classic film Forbidden Planet, where a machine for generating creatures of the id was part of the plot of the movie.
Well, as I recall, the machine supplied the nearly endless amount of power that allowed the creation and maintenance of this creature, but it only supplied the power. It was the evil mind, you recall, of the man who lived on the planet, who was in effect creating this horrid monster.
Exactly. As I said, we cannot rule any possibility out at the moment. No matter how enticing some of these theories might seem, we should just keep an open mind.
All right. Well, what I'm going to do is open some phone lines and let people ask you questions. How about that?
Very good. I'd be delighted.
All right, good. That's coming up next. Now, as you may have noted, we began early tonight, as we will every night from now on, at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 a.m. Eastern. Scott Corrales is my guest. His book is Chupacabras and Other Mysteries. And indeed, mysteries they are. If you have questions, we're going to open the lines coming next. All right, here we go. My guest is Scott Corrales. We're talking about the Chupacabra. Very, very ugly creature indeed, and other similar mysteries. And as we go back to him and your calls in a second, I got this fax from Randy. Art, what is going on? There have been 5 tornadoes in Oklahoma City, winds to 75 miles an hour here in Arkansas, and 2 more tornadoes in Texas. The weather is not the same anymore. Well, of course, Randy, I agree with you. Now, there have always been tornadoes in Oklahoma. That is not unusual. But there is no question about the fact that our weather is changing and quickening, if you will. That's the title of my book, of course. Plug. I'll tell you how to get it after a while here. I would like to ask you about that, Scott. There is something going on, some environmental change going on, that is reflected not just by the possible presence of chupacabras and whatever else, but there's a larger thing going on, a change, basic, profound change in our weather, in our environment. New diseases are popping up, things that are killing fish off the East Coast, the Antarctic ice shelf, one of them getting ready to drop off into the water. A lot of very unusual environmental things, ozone depletion, the rest of it, all going on at once. And it all seems to be quickening. Is it possible that these strange creatures are some kind of product of this change?
That certainly has always come to mind. I mean, we seem to be having all the signs of the times, not only applicable to Judeo-Christian religion, but to other millennial religions as well. Certainly, people who, let's say, read the Book of Revelation, etc., have drawn parameters between what was going to happen, strange creatures being seen, etc. And there's certainly the possibility that this could also be chupacabras and Bigfoot-like creatures and your pterodactyls that manifest every so often could be part of this.
All right, let's go to the phones. First-time caller line. You are on the air with my guest, Scott.
I just wanted to ask him, what does he think? Like, what bothers me about this, like that thing and Bigfoot and whatnot, is that they seem to cough up here and then suddenly they're in California and
that's right,
somewhere else and here or there. And I was just wondering, how much do you think it might be people propagating a legend?
A legend, all right. Where are you, by the way?
I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, Art. I'm listening to you out of Como.
All right. Aside from my discussions on the air about the chupacabra and these other things, have you heard about them otherwise?
Yeah, up here in British Columbia and that.
I think what people are hearing on the media and the press is usually the humorous, the dismissive stories, which in no way would lead people to begin conducting hoaxes on their own. Aside from the photo hoaxes, which are ubiquitous in these days of all kinds of scanning technology in the home and all these things, there have been no hoaxes. You certainly have had a lot of colorful characters, like the psychic I mentioned earlier in the show, dropping their 2 cents and saying that they're from this planet, that planet, they will not drink human blood, etc. But outright hoaxes, I don't believe we've had any thus far.
Okay, all right. Wild card line, you're on the air with Scott Corrales. Hi.
Yeah. Art?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm calling from Reading. That last fellow that talked from British Columbia?
Yes.
I can take it down a little bit further south. I used to live with the Quileute Indians in Forks, Washington.
Yes.
I'm a trucker, and I hauled their fish. They're a fishing village. And I asked one time about Bigfoot down in that area, and they said, yeah, we have sightings all the time, but we just don't noise it around. We're tired of being laughed at.
Right.
Well, I have an incident to relate to you. The reservation cop and I were pretty good friends, and the night before all of this, the big happening, they had gone to dinner, the Coast Guard commander and his wife, and Joe and his wife, the reservation cop, of course. And coming back that night about 9:30, there's a hard right-hand turn into the reservation on a little 1.5-lane blacktop road, and this big hairy critter ran across the road. Joe got him in his spotlight, stopped his car. He was in his prowl car, and he stepped back to the pickup behind him, which was a Coast Guard pickup, and he asked the guy in the pickup, did you see anything? He says, well, I can't really be sure. So they let it go. The next morning, 2 little kids were playing on a bend in the river where it took its last turn before it went out to the ocean. And they were throwing rocks at some big critter across in the bushes across the river. It was quite a ways. The rocks never got to him, and the big guy, he'd kind of half-heartedly throw one back. But he was on a spot of ground that was bordered on one side by the blacktop road to a public parking area to go to the beach, which was a reservation border. The beach access was public land, and then the river divided the public land from the reservation. Well, here came a car. The big guy heard it. He stood up. And these 2 little kids, the next thing Joe knows, he's got them in his office, and they're practically incoherent. And he related this to me. I didn't see it firsthand, of course. And that's when I began asking around about, they call them Sasquatch up there.
Right.
And all over the Northwest, you hear the same thing from the local folks up there, that they have sightings all the time.
Well, I've got an idea. Let us ask our guest, Scott, we've got a lot of Bigfoot sightings in the Northwest. Are there sightings in Mexico, in Spanish lands, around the world, for that matter, of what we call Bigfoot?
Yes, we certainly do. In fact, one of the chapters of Chupacabras and Other Mysteries is devoted to that subject. You have the Sasquatch-like creature called the Ucumaru, which is in the Andes between Chile and Argentina.
What is that? How do they describe it?
They describe it as a simian, 8-foot-tall, hairy creature. It's also in the mythology of the area. People feel that it's a gentle giant, just as people in the Pacific Northwest feel about Bigfoot. And certainly there has been evidence gathered by zoologists over the years that such a creature does exist at the higher reaches of the Andes. If you move into Amazonia in Brazil, you start getting reports of gigantic simians or humanoids, pre-human creatures, which could also be part of the Bigfoot tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Puerto Rico, as I said, has had reports of the Comecogoyos since the 80s, or at the 70s, actually. Mexico has also had, this is interesting about Mexico, is its two mountain chains, the Sierra Madre, both on the east and the west, are very poorly explored mountains. And people are quite proud of the fact, actually, that these mountains have never been explored.
In other words, there are areas, you're telling me, where man really has never gone in Mexico?
That's absolutely correct, and people consider it a point of pride that these things have never been properly investigated. And certainly, creatures like that could be living in there. If you move into Central America, you have a smaller simian creature, the Sisamite, which is in Belize in Honduras. So yes, you do have this tradition of Sasquatch-like creatures spreading all the way down to South America. Certainly, there's a Bigfoot of the Pyrenees between France and Spain. So, is this simply a creature that chooses mountains as its habitat?
I don't know. Gee whiz, Scott, I thought every square inch of everywhere had been trumped upon by man.
That is, I think we all think that. I think it was the late Ivan Sanderson who pointed out to the fact that cartographers, map makers play fast and loose with the data they have at hand. They'll cover an area, so many grids from the air. They'll send someone in there, take a couple of measurements, but no one will ever go into the heart of things.
So there's lots of land that man has not yet walked upon, and who knows what might be there.
Precisely.
Okay. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Scott Corrales. Hi.
Hi, my name is Ramona.
Ramona. Nice name.
I know, it's your wife's name, too.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I've been listening to you. I'm very concerned, and I'm interested in what he's talking about, because I have seen, they've had several features on different television shows about this, and they have shown, tried to show pictures of what this Chupacabra looks like.
Chupacabra. By the way, Scott, is that right? They have a drawing that is pretty well universally accepted. It's what this lady is talking about, of what the Chupacabra looks like.
That's correct. That would be Jorge Martin's drawing that he did back in 1995.
Is that the best?
That seems to be the one closest to the truth, to the actual description rather than the truth. I've seen a number of drawings of the creature.
Well,
and I've seen the numbers held up to a number of witnesses. They say, no, that the closest one seems to be the original drawing.
Because they look almost like, like the aliens. And as you were talking before about all the different storms and the activities and the different tornadoes and stuff, I'm from Westfield, Massachusetts, believe it or not.
Okay.
I don't know if you know where that is.
I don't, but that's okay.
You ever hear of Hartford?
Of course. Oh, of course.
Okay, it's on the other side of Springfield.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right. It's not too far from the Berkshires.
Okay.
And every now and then, I've heard you hear about sightings of UFOs and stuff. I have actually seen sightings of strange lights too. But the thing that gets me about this is, it seems to me that you did have a subject one time about the mutating frogs.
Oh, yes.
And I'm wondering if these could be possibility of mutation.
Oh, there's absolutely no question about it. Thank you. That's what I was talking about earlier. What I call the quickening. One aspect of it is the environmental changes. We have frogs that are mutating, extra legs. I've got a photograph of a frog with an eye in its throat. In some areas of the upper Midwest now, they cannot find normal frogs. They're nearly all mutated. We've got single-celled and simple creatures in the Antarctic now being so affected that they have detected genetic change in the DNA strand. There's some pretty strange stuff going on. So that an animal like this could be produced by changes that are naturally or not so naturally occurring on Earth. Not a surprise, huh, Scott?
Not at all, certainly. I don't know of any creature, however, that leaves a radiation signature that's above background radiation. So my contention would be that, well, it's possible that it could be a genetic mutation.
Well, yes, but radiation may have had something to do with its creation.
You can't put that possibility aside either. No, you certainly can't. Nonetheless, I tend to incline to the fact that if it's leaving that kind of radiation amount, you're dealing with something completely beyond the pale.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Scott Corrales. Hi.
This is Fritz from Phoenix.
Hi, Fritz.
I have been following the Chupacabra mystery with great interest for the last 3 years. It made the headlines, I would say, even in the mainstream media.
Right.
So fast. Of course, Art, you had a lot to do with your program to give it the exposure. And that's, of course, positive because the world would never know. It took Bigfoot 30 years to go up front, and here the Chupacabra comes in 3 years, so fast. Now, I'm myself going through the process of elimination, but it's very difficult from the living room to do that. Now, it seems, in my opinion, there's definitely an intelligence dropping the Chupacabra from counter to counter. And I want to ask Scott, the question is, how is it possible that it can be dropped? Is there any evidence now, video? I mean, a lot of people have video cameras nowadays. Is there a possibility to set a ring of watches out with video cameras to see how this mystery moves around? And if there's a connection with UFO, because everything points to it, but of course that's just speculation.
You know, I believe that in January of '96 there was a project set up in Puerto Rico to somehow involve a network of night vision equipment and camcorders to be triggered at a certain time. And I'm not sure what the outcome of that project was, but certainly efforts have been made in that direction. Now, however, one of the main complaints, though, that's been echoed, I think, since the situation started, is why don't people have more camcorders in Puerto Rico, etc.? And I think the main contention here is, yes, people have as much access to still cameras, camcorders, what have you, but it's not a shutterbug society.
Well, listen, whether it is or not, let me tell you something. I have now seen 2 UFOs. Both times I kicked myself silly after seeing the things. One particularly, not very long ago here at home, I could have run in and grabbed my 8mm, which had a good zoom on it, and it didn't occur to me. You know why? Because when you're in the middle of something like that, you're absolutely frozen. And as much as a disc in the sky froze me, Scott, I can only imagine that to see something like the Chupacabra, not only would it would be fight or flight time, or you'd be frozen in place with victim tattooed on your forehead, it's hard to know which, but you'd be not inclined to reach for a camera.
I would second that motion, certainly.
And only people who have seen something like this and understand the way it immobilizes you can understand why there are not a lot of photographs taken.
However, the contention keeps on, it arises every time. Why are there no photos? Why do we keep on having drawings and artists' renderings? Why aren't there any photos? What about Mexico? What about this? What about here? What about there? And all we can produce is, let's say, in the cold light of day. It's handiwork. We keep on seeing the dead animals. Yet, perhaps someday, one of these camera arrays will work and deliver us images, hopefully video footage as opposed to still footage of the creature carrying out its actions.
Well, suppose they were to set up night vision equipment and video recorders and all the rest of it, and cameras, and they actually caught an image of one of these. How do you think that would affect society, particularly Spanish society?
I think Spanish society would be simply, yes, we told you so, here it is. In the United States, the reaction would just be, well, it's a hoax. Obviously, that's a man in a suit. It's some sort of virtual reality.
Right.
And computer-generated. So you could never convince the skeptics or the scientific community they have PhDs writing on this to...
So a photograph is not going to really be sufficient for all these, I'll put it in quotes, civilized people up north here.
No, a photograph is going to sell a lot of newspapers and a lot of magazine articles, but it's not going to convince anyone.
You're quite correct. They're going to say it is somebody in a suit, or they're going to say it is a photographic manipulation. And frankly, that's true of any photograph of any unusual phenomena, from ghosts to UFOs to photographs of creatures and all the rest of it. We have come into an age where nobody is going to believe a damn thing, photograph or not. So, next question. With regard to Bigfoot, there is a reputable scientist in the Northwest who says the first Bigfoot that we can kill, we should kill. And then there should be the death penalty for anybody who would kill a second one. In other words, he's saying, in effect, we want one so that we know we've got this creature. We put it on the endangered species list. We examine it, we dissect it, we cut it into little pieces and find out what makes it tick, and then we kill no more.
I've heard that contention, and certainly you have the argument that until you kill one, no one will know that it's real. You have the opposing view, which is if we're talking about a sentient creature in any way, shape, or form.
Yes.
We're killing one of our relatives, in fact, one of our primate relatives.
So what would you say of those two views? Which one would you embrace?
That's between the pit and the pendulum there.
Yes.
I would have to advocate perhaps the actual downing of a Bigfoot, having to kill one.
Take one down.
To be able to just prove to the world, scientific community and the media at large, yes, it does exist. And I think the same would apply to any abnormal creature.
So take one down, prove it exists, and then what? Add it to the endangered species list, or begin to worry about the future of humanity generally?
It's a consolation prize to add it to the endangered species list. It doesn't do it any good, though.
All right, Scott, hold on. We'll do one more hour. Phones are going nuts here, so stand by. Scott Corrales is my guest. He has the background and has done the research on the Chupacabra and other similar mysteries. So if you have questions about these weird creatures, and I guess in a way it also involves Bigfoot and this whole range of creatures that seem to come and go in a most horrific way, here we are. Now back to Scott Corrales. Scott has been investigating things like the Chupacabra and other monster mysteries for many, many years. And so if you have any questions, come now. Scott, are you there?
I certainly am.
All right. We'll do one more hour, and lots of people apparently want to talk about this. So to the phones. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Scott Corrales. Hi.
Hi, Art.
Hi.
Love your show.
Thank you. Where are you?
Fallsview, West Virginia.
All right.
It's in the Panhandle.
Right.
Okay. First thing I'd like to say, I love your site. It's the top bookmark on my account.
All right. Yes, it's a good website.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm talking to my parents about getting web TV, too.
Good for you.
Okay. My question is, okay, let's try this again.
Okay.
Where in the United States have these been sighted, I mean, as far as up? How far up have they been sighted in the United States?
That's a very good question.
When you say, well, let's qualify they. What do you mean by they? Chupacabras?
Chupacabras, yeah.
Chupacabras, all right.
Right, I thought that was going to be easy, but for the caller meant having mutilations. Then the Hialeah area.
As a matter of fact, may I stop you, Scott, and then you can answer the rest of the question. There was an animal that attacked a car north of Miami somewhere, and it put actual deep scratches in the bumper of the car. Did you hear about that?
I certainly did. That was researched by Dr. Virgilio Sanchez, whose little book on the Chupacabras in Florida has just come out. It moved north, then it moved west from Florida. We started getting the sightings in Texas, then New Mexico, Arizona, California. Finally, it moved as far north as Oregon, as far as I know. However, it never moved farther north on the eastern seaboard. The phenomenon then quickly moved overseas to thrill, no doubt, people in Spain and in Portugal. And it kept on moving south into South America, but no reliable information is available from either Colombia or Venezuela.
Well, there are those who would be suspicious that the Chupacabra, other than its brief sojourn into the States, is seen mainly in Spanish-speaking areas.
That has often been remarked. Is this just a
Spanish phenomenon?
A figment of the Hispanic-American mentality, or
right.
something prone to Spanish-speaking populations? I don't think so. I think it's an equal opportunity phenomenon. I think if you happen to be in an area where it's taking place, you stand a good chance of seeing it. Ethnicity notwithstanding.
Okay, but is there any cultural propensity that you could explain that would begin to enter that area, saying, well, it is mainly a Spanish kind of thing?
You could say that, yes, as we mentioned earlier in the show, that there is a greater acceptance of the paranormal, the supernatural, in Latin society, perhaps because of an African influence to deal with as well, and that's the supernatural is certainly a West African thing.
Well, we know that UFO sightings are so common in Mexico City that people have begun to take them for granted and just sort of going, oh, there's another one.
See, that was the case when I lived there in the 70s. We had I guess our own equivalent down there of the 1973 Year of the Humanoids we were having in the States. And it got to the point where UFOs were simply a matter of curiosity more than anything, a matter of admiration. People stopped paying attention and said, well, yes, these things are real, and they may be from another planet, from another dimension, and you'll know.
All right. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Scott Corrales. Hi.
Yeah, hi, Art. Hi, Scott.
Hello.
Where are you, sir?
St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
Kind of the heart of Bigfoot country.
It sure is.
Yeah, I was wondering, St. Louis is a place that's building out, and as our community kind of branches out into what used to be wooded areas, have there been any reports of a Bigfoot, like, wandering through a subdivision?
I recall back in the 70s there were
like
Bigfoot stories in Florida.
Oh, really?
In Hialeah. I remember that it was seen parading through the backyards. I believe it was Lauren Coleman who researched that information.
It is interesting as we move into areas that we have not been in before. For example, in South America, it is said you can see the fires in the rainforests as we burn them down from space. They are so severe. And so we're constantly moving man into areas where man has never been before, and maybe in a lot of areas, as you pointed out earlier, where man has never walked before. So should we be surprised that we see things that man has never seen before?
Well, we know that when we stir up ecosystems that have never been disturbed, we come up with things like the Ebola virus and Lassa fever and all these other strange viruses, which we have no immunity, resistance, certainly.
Exactly. There is a new virus off the coast, the East Coast now, of America. As a matter of fact, I've got another report on it this morning. And what it does is it goes to the bottom of fresh or salt water, and it waits. And when enough toxins enter the water, it is activated, and it begins killing fish first. And then it begins making people sick. And it's one of those things that you might speculate has always been there, but, the conditions were not quite right for it to flourish. But the minute the right toxins get in the water, suddenly it's activated, and there it is.
It serves as a catalyst, then, to bring these things
A catalyst. Thank you. That's the word. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Scott Corrales. Hi. Hello there. Going once, going twice. Go on. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, this is Chris. I'm calling from Tacoma.
Hi, Chris.
Yeah, first, I had a couple questions and then one short comment, but I was just wondering, I was curious, how many years does the Chupacabra go back to?
Good question.
The Chupacabras is a recent phenomenon in the incarnation to which it's been it's been known. It's from 1995. If you go back to the 70s, you'll see similar activity, but there was no creature ever associated with it.
Because I was wondering as far as reproduction, because I get the impression that when the Sasquatch and the Chupacabra is being talked about, it's talked about singly, like a Chupacabra or a Sasquatch, and I was wondering, they must be reproducing, or at some point, what would their lifespan be? I mean, they would either have to die off like anything.
Well, that's actually, we've been talking about that. In other words, have you noticed they appear, they are a problem, and then they are gone again for a while. Now, I'm not sure what that suggests, but I understand where you're coming from with your question, and I think the last thing we would want is for these things to begin to reproduce in a prolific manner.
That is certainly undesirable. Chupacabras has been seen in groups of 3 or 4 in certain parts of Puerto Rico, so we know there's a plurality of beings, as opposed to a single one that appears in different locations. Whether it's a natural creature, I doubt that any natural creature emits a smell akin to battery acid.
Battery acid.
Battery acid has been mentioned. Malathion, the pesticide, has been mentioned. Strong, acrid chemical odors are left behind by this creature.
Well, if I were to see 3 chupacabras, there would be nothing further to worry about for me because I'd faint. And then they'd have their way with me, I suppose. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Scott Corrales. Hi.
Hi, Art. This is Carolyn in Seattle.
Hi.
My question fits into the realm of other kind of mysteries.
Okay.
I wanted to ask Scott if he knew whether or not he'd heard anything about people with, this is my situation, waking up in the morning with different kinds of brands. My children call them brandings. They're like shapes of squares, circles, triangles, and they're...
On your body?
Yes, from anywhere on my back to my neck, and they last for about 3 months. They're completely numb. They look like they are raised marks that look like they've been severe burns, and they have deep bruises in the center.
Wow.
And there's no feeling at all to these areas.
In other words, there is the possibility you have been attacked by something in the night.
Right. The first time I saw this, I have a king-size waterbed. I came in my room, I just tore my bed to pieces trying to find what I had slept on.
Sure.
And, I've had children ranging from the age of 24 to 16, and I have a husband I've been with for 20 years, and a grandchild. And we all look at these things, and we all, there's just no explaining it.
May I ask a personal question?
Yes.
Do you sleep with your husband?
My husband is a merchant seaman, so he's gone often. These have come up when he's been here. And, it's just the strangest thing.
So many times you're a lonely target.
Right. Oh, yeah. Most definitely. Most of the time. He's been home the last year for about 6 weeks. So I'm at a place where I'm wondering if Scott has been aware of anyone else.
Okay. All right. Good question. It comes under the area of other mysteries for sure. Scott?
I really wish I could be more helpful. This sounds like a very, very serious matter. It would fall more into the realm of poltergeistic phenomena where welts are left on the skin, impressions left on the skin, or what is now being covered under abduction studies.
Well, I did call Peter Davenport here in Seattle, and he put me in touch with a doctor here who does this as a side kind of thing. He has very limited time that he can invest in this. And so he asked me to keep a journal for a year.
Keep a journal?
Pictures and journals. What happens is, in the mornings, I started noticing a pattern. I call it, it's difficult for me to talk about this because I really haven't.
No, I understand. Listen, I'll tell you what. Have you also been taking photographs?
Yes.
You have?
Yes, the triangles are very, very clear and specific. The squares are very, very clear. The circles are very clear for about a month, and then they start fading away.
All right, no, I think I've got the picture. What I'm asking is, don't send me originals, but could you send some photographs?
I could. Yes, I could. The thing that I've gotten, I haven't even paid very much attention. I've got one now that faded about 3 weeks ago, lasted about 3 to 4 months. And as they fade, they break up into patterns of circles. But, you know, even after they fade, I still have numbness. All over my back, I have numb places.
All right. I would very much like to see some photographs.
Yes, okay.
Send them to me, all right?
All right.
All right, thank you.
And best of luck.
Best of luck indeed. Wow. East of the Rockies, you are on the air with Scott Corrales. Hi.
Yes, good morning, Art. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning.
Well, let me just say, first of all, Art, you have some very interesting topics, and I drive truck at night, and you definitely keep me looking over my shoulder with some of your topics there.
This ought to do it. Yes, where are you, by the way?
I'm in Mendota, Illinois, currently making a stop in the town here.
Okay.
You know, you talk a lot about, we got on the subject earlier, you guys were talking a little bit about aliens, possibilities of cover-ups with the government and not letting people possibly know about them. Scott, do you ever have the fear, all the work and the effort and the time that you put into this, that if one is ever found alive or dead, that there's a possibility that, you know, nobody could ever know about this and it would take years to unravel, so to speak, as the UFOs have come along in that?
It's a good point. In other words, let's say we find a body, or we have found one, or let's say that we have captured one alive. Isn't it probable, Scott, that the military would descend, they would take the creature, it would disappear to Wright Patterson Air Force Base or someplace or another, and we would never see it?
Almost certainly. But I'd like to, the way I see UFO research right now, and particularly the work that I've compiled on what's going on in Latin America, we seem to be gathering evidence, all our research, all our material, for the benefit of future generations who will perhaps be in a better position to understand the phenomenon. Much like electricity was of no use to Benjamin Franklin. He was fooling around with the concept. It would have to wait another century before it was useful to someone. And I think that's the thing with ufology. We are creating the reference books that our great-great-great-grandchildren will look back to for the early information on the phenomenon when they're in a position to solve the mystery. So I think even if a body were discovered and the information were concealed, somehow those government reports would eventually surface in the future. And it's a phenomenon that's going to be for the benefit of future generations. It's very important that we document everything, we preserve all the information we have to that end.
All right. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Scott Corrales. Hi.
How you doing, Art? My name is Stephen. I'm calling from Chicago.
Hi, Stephen.
One of the questions I'd like to ask Scott is, and this is something that you've been talking about a lot with your quickening, it's, are these animals, like the Chupacabra, the Sasquatch, are they simply animals that have already been here for eons?
Right.
And that because we're simply going into their territory, that we're seeing them more often?
It's highly unlikely. But we cannot dismiss the possibility that as we move into virgin forest areas, in our search for minerals and other resources, we're drilling deep into the earth, we're going into caves. It could be possible that these creatures form part of our physical reality. However, why do they leave these radiation signatures? Why do they emit these acrid chemical odors?
Yeah, this is the first time I have ever heard about the radiation signatures. That's really weird.
It certainly is. It's very disturbing.
And then you mentioned one other thing, Scott, that caught my attention. You said we're drilling deeper into the earth. In fact, we are. And is it just possible that some of these creatures may be coming up from underground?
That notion has been set forth a couple of times. They alleging, well, the creature has luminous eyes; it could live underground.
Exactly.
What would it survive on living underground? Well, that's also open to speculation. But drilling ever deeper for more oil, for minerals, certainly Puerto Rico has supplies of copper and other valuable metals, and there's consideration that they're going to be exploited.
Mm-hmm.
Test pits could have been dug, and this thing could have come out.
Up and out. Boy. All right, Scott, stand by. We're going to take a break here at the bottom of the hour. Scott Corrales is my guest. His book, coming out shortly, is called Chupacabras. All right, back now to Scott Corrales, who is in Pennsylvania, where it's getting very early in the morning, I guess.
It's That's right.
There are not many people like you, Scott. There's Linda Moulton Howe. She was hot on the track of the Chupacabra for a while. Who would you say are the top investigators in the area?
Well, I'd like to begin by saying, you mentioned that I was the investigator. I like to see myself just as the chronicler. The credit for the investigation goes to the unsung researchers in Puerto Rico, like Federico Alvarez, Willie Duran, Jorge Martin, and people who just selflessly devoted themselves for months to going into these areas, talking to the witnesses,
exactly,
and ultimately to the witnesses themselves for coming forward.
Do they? All right, then here's a good question. Do the researchers come to similar conclusions? In other words, that there is something real here, that it is not a myth, that something really is killing these animals. Have they all come to the same conclusion, or do they vary?
They all agree on the reality of the phenomenon. I think by and large, they do agree on its origin. I think most of
Puerto Rico,
the Puerto Rican researchers believe that it's an extraterrestrial phenomenon in some way related to the strong presence of allegedly alien beings on the island. As I said, you could write an entire book on...
Well, again, Scott, people used to, scoff a lot at this sort of thing, but here we have a survey done this last weekend by CNN and USA Today that shows that 8 out of 10 Americans believe the U.S. government is hiding information about contact with aliens. That's 8 out of 10. That's a higher percentage than support abortion, for example. As a matter of fact, 8 out of 10 is rarely taken as agreement. Well, I think we had it in the Gulf War, maybe. But Americans rarely agree to that percentage on anything. So I thought that was amazing. Wildcard Line, you're on the air with Scott Corrales. Hi.
Hi, I'm so excited to get on. Hi, Scott. This is great that you're investigating the Chupacabras. I moved to Puerto Rico in '95, and the Chupacabras has been a part of my life. Not exactly personal, but, just being exposed to it. It's interesting that the indigenous people there had a myth of a bat-like creature that represented death, and it was the Caldibiri. And also another thing geographically about the island is that it's just a great big catacomb. When I was there, I went to classes and I did some cave exploring, and there's this one place called Camuy where there are 2,000 caves in the area and only 200 have been explored.
Right.
And it's just a great big catacomb. Anything can be down there. And the fact that
you mentioned that, actually. Very few people know about the Camuy cave systems, about 40 kilometers long.
Yes, I've swum through a couple of those myself. And I know that it could be anything out there, and I'm sure that these farmers are not killing off their goats they're very expensive on the island. They wouldn't just be killing off their goats for no reason. Another thing is the UFO connection there, Arecibo's satellite sending out messages to aliens, waiting for an answer. Maybe we got one. And there's also a experimentation place there, a military animal experimentation place, and a lot of the people feel that there might be a connection there, some kind of genetic. Some people, have described it as a monkey, and but I don't think we have blood-sucking monkeys that I know of. But it's just, and the animals don't get rigor mortis after they're dead. They do not get rigor mortis. I mean, that's what I heard on the television over in Puerto Rico when I was there. And what's interesting is that, I went there and I came back. I took a Greyhound bus from Florida back all through the southern part of the country up to, and I live near Oregon now. This thing is like following me or something. But it's kind of funny. Yeah, my kids love the story. My son has written a book about it, and it's a great mythology to know, but it's also very, very old. In the 70s and in the 50s, there were stories of, vampire creatures on the island. And it's part of the culture, really, and mythology. And it's really possible that these things could have come up from the center of the earth with so many caves that have not been explored there. And but the military thing and the alien thing, there's the Arecibo.
Well, it seems as though everybody, thank you, agrees they exist, and nobody agrees on where they come from, because we just don't know.
That remains the prize-winning question: where do they come from? But as the caller just pointed out, yes, the Taino Indians had a number of legends. Certain creatures like the Maboya, I believe, is one of the entities. And yes, there's very much a folkloric background for some of these sightings. But Chupacabras itself appears to be a recent development. And I don't see it collected anywhere in the history books at any rate, not the ones that I've had access to.
Mm-hmm. All right. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Scott Corrales. Hi.
Hi.
Where are you?
I'm in Montana, western Montana.
Well, all right.
And we've had Sasquatch sightings here, too. And I've been doing a lot of reading, and I've got a question, and it involves two areas. One is with the germs and the animals dying and so forth, and the other involves the sightings of the Sasquatch.
Yes.
Okay, dating back to World War I, there's been ongoing research to develop a germ or a bacterium or toxin that would be extremely toxic. You couldn't kill it.
Okay.
And the United States and Great Britain, Germany, Japan, Russia are all involved in developing this thing.
Of course.
And they have done experimentation off of the East Coast that I'm aware of in the early 50s. And since then, the alligators and crocodiles down in Florida area, they've lost their ability to reproduce. So there's been sea animals and so forth all over on both coasts that have shown up dead. There's birds showing up dead.
I know.
Inland and
I know.
so
These
forth.
are all environmental difficulties that are plaguing us. But I just had a thought, Scott. Let's say that something like the Chupacabra is created in a laboratory.
Right.
If that's the case, it may be that we have created a new animal genetically. Maybe we have created something that has no natural way to live on this planet. In other words, it has no natural prey. It has no natural food. It has no natural way to reproduce. So it escapes from a lab. It does a lot of damage, and then it dies. Possible?
That's, of course, as long as we continue discussing the subject of genetics, certainly, and an escapee from a lab. However, there's been no huge manhunt for the creature that I can tell. Of course, there were rumors that the creature had in fact been captured by the civil defense in the early weeks of the phenomenon, the Puerto Rican stage of the phenomenon. But nothing ever came of that. It just remained hearsay, which unfortunately there's been too much of in the whole phenomenon, but that's what we're dealing with.
Well, as I said, if one were captured, I think it very unlikely the military would go and get it and take it away, and they would dissect it, trying to find out if it was alien or what it was, if they weren't the ones who created it.
And they're trying to see how it works.
That's exactly right, and cut it into little pieces, I'm sure. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Scott Corrales. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Okay, where are you?
I'm calling from Colorado.
Yes, sir.
Yes, a year ago I had met a gentleman that had came to Colorado at a UFO conference, and he had a lot of outstanding photographs. And he showed me a picture of what he said was a chupacabra.
And what did it look like?
It sort of looked like a bat. It was in mid-flight, and you could make out characteristics on its face. And I looked at a lot of the local drawings that people had claiming they were chupacabras, and some of the features didn't quite match up to what the...
Do you have a copy of this photograph?
I could call him and see if I could get permission to send it to you.
Would you do that?
Yes.
You know me in photographs of creatures.
You can make out details on it, and a lot of people have looked at it. And at the conference in Denver, a lot of people had looked at it and scrutinized it, but because of the detail, they seemed that it was very good.
All right.
They didn't question it in any way.
You know my address, right?
Yes.
All right. Send it to me immediately.
Okay, I certainly will.
All right, thank you. I post these things, and you never know what's fraudulent and what's real, but I put them up there, Scott, and I let people look at them and decide for themselves.
Well, it's fascinating. During the Mexican stage of the phenomenon, a couple of fishermen, I think, mutilated a cat, or and somehow cut it open to give it wings. And that was paraded in the Mexican newspapers of Chupacabras for a couple of weeks.
The winged cat.
That's right.
You know what? I think I saw a photograph of that thing.
It's been making the rounds still.
That's
a year later.
horrible. That's horrible. They cut open a cat to give it wings?
It's astounding what will go on. But people will sometimes sink to Chupacabras like levels.
Ah, yes. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Scott Corrales. Hello.
Yes, this is Chuck from Nashville, Tennessee.
Hi, Chuck.
Have an interesting story about a Chupacabra and UFO connection.
All right.
A friend of mine and I had actually it was me that heard the newscast from a local TV station about a man who had some sort of encounter. And at that particular time, I'd really just heard, little bits and pieces about the Chupacabra.
Now, wait a minute. Now, I heard that. Was that near Nashville?
Yeah, it was in the Orlando community.
Yes.
Just outside of Springfield, Tennessee.
Yes. And
we investigated that before the MUFON organization showed up.
And what did you find?
Oh, very interesting. What really got my attention was the news media. Local news media had to rerun the story because the gentleman got a little upset because they portrayed him as the stereotypical good old boy, with his dog and such. The man was a carpenter, and they lived out in the country. He had two small boys, and what was interesting is when we went out there, he started to go in the house because at that time he was being inundated. He had a veterinarian to come out and check his dog. And the veterinarian didn't make any comment about any marks. The marks that we saw on this particular dog were not that of an animal or a Chupacabra. But at that time, we didn't know what it was. He had described these strange lights and also had a UFO that was reported above him during this hysterical situation. My outtake on it, after hearing this, was that something was obviously looking at something or looking for something around where he lived. Now, he had also told us of all the small animals that his dogs had drug up, but had literally dried up. He called them dehydrated. And so, again, I didn't make the connection. It wasn't until a month later when we went back after MUFON showed up. Let me back up just a second. There were some tracks that he showed us under his deck. He lived in a trailer out in the country, and the field that he was back up against was just a great big soybean field.
Okay, what were the tracks?
The tracks, they were strange. As a matter of fact, we wanted to take a sample of them, and he told us not to because MUFON had contacted him and told him to, leave everything as it was until they showed up. So we didn't bother it, but the tracks, this might sound strange, but it looked like, have you ever seen a chicken's track? Except this had webs between the toes, bigger webs than a chicken would have. But it definitely was an imprint, and it was organic. I'm also a physician, and I'm using an alias for obvious reasons. And so having that interest in this, we went out there. I guess it was my first official UFO investigation that turned out to be a little stranger because, in fact, when we went back a month later, MUFON had interviewed his two sons, and the little boy, the smaller boy, had told the people that he had saw this creature up in a tree. And again, I had not made the connection with the small animals, but we were more interested in the UFO sighting and some of the strange phenomena that centered around it. So when we heard MUFON had told the little boy that was a Chupacabra, the way he described it. And this person was obviously in a situation he didn't want any more media on this because the local radio stations were making fun of him, and so we were genuine with him, and to this date I could go back out there and visit with him, but it was very interesting, and I thought maybe I'd shed that light on.
Well, why don't you do two things? One, why don't you put him in touch with me?
Sure.
Because we don't laugh at people here.
Right, I understand that.
All right.
Well, I really appreciate your show, and I think you have some interesting concepts on that. My only thing is that whatever it was, after thinking about this, from having been out there on two different occasions, is that it would take too much detail to go in to make this correlation. But from what I understood, and this is just an opinion, But it seemed like whatever had gotten loose out there and had been out there weeks before this sighting appeared, something had some way of tracking this animal. And it had to be something with a lot more technology than we have, and was, because after that incident, after the UFO incident, there were no more dead animals.
Maybe it came and collected whatever it was, Doctor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care. There you are, Scott.
That's a fascinating story. I'd never heard of that account.
Well, you know, what I found is, Scott, when you don't laugh at people, when you simply listen to them, they don't mind telling their story. But just about everybody minds being ridiculed, and they don't like it. And if you ridicule them, then they're just not ever going to tell you their story. Anyway, listen, Scott, your book, Chupacabras and Other Mysteries, is not yet available. So what can they do? Take pre-orders at this point?
The expected release date at the time is July 4th.
July 4th. A great day to release a book indeed. All right, my friend, I want to thank you for being here, and we will do it again sometime.
Thank you very much, Art. It's been my pleasure.
Scott, take care, and I hope you can get some sleep.
I'll try.
All right. Thank you, and good night. That's Scott Corellis, and he knows about the Chupacabra and other such animals. Coming up next, Open Line Talk Radio. Unscreened, unplanned, and sometimes pretty weird. Hi, Art. I feel more people believe in aliens, true, than our government, because the aliens haven't lied to us as much as the government has. As far as President Clinton, or anybody for that matter, apologizing to blacks in America for slavery, I don't know too many people living today that had anything to do with it. So why should anybody living today have to apologize for it? It's too bad that there was slavery in the first place. But I'm sure not going to apologize for something I had nothing to do with. Nick in KSTP country. Yeah. I kind of understand that. I think that our president is just setting something up to be talked about, argued about, that will have no relevance for those who take the position Nick does, or that I do. And I'm not against it. Slavery was wrong. Everybody knows that. But what relevance is there? In what way will it improve anybody's life out there for a president to make an apology? By the way, while we're still at it, he won't even apologize to Paula Jones. West of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hello. Turn your radio off, please.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm not getting you on my radio right now.
You're not?
No, I'm...
Well, there's then two reasons for you to have it off.
All right. I watch zombie movies, Italian zombie movies, and...
You watch Italian zombie movies?
Yeah, from the 70s, and I was wondering if, say there was a contagion or a disease now that was infecting people, killing them, and the bodies, I don't know, they still had the disease when they were buried, and do you think that there's a possibility that any disease that was coming forth right now would maybe be, I don't know, in some kind of state of limbo, or maybe I'm just wondering if there's a possibility that maybe these diseases could revive the person to come out of the ground.
Well, I would hope not. That would be the last thing I would want to see. You remember Night of the Living Dead?
Yeah, that's one of my...
Probably one of your favorite movies, right?
Dawn of the Dead, too. Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead. I hope not. I mean, but you never know. There might be some little something down there lying dormant, waiting for just the right pollutant to come along and marry it. And it would reanimate, a better term, the dead, and we would have, once again, zombies.
Wow.
Would you, if there were zombies, I take it from what you've just told me, you would be a fan.
I suppose it would probably, I'd always...
I mean, you might even be a zombie groupie.
Maybe from a distance. Yeah, because...
I remember, look, when I was young and the original movie came along, Night of the Living Dead, I thought that was one of the scariest movies I had ever seen in my whole life, and it gave me nightmares for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
It was horrible. The original one was actually more horrible than the redo, you know, where we had color graphic of people being dismembered. Oh, man, I remember that first one. Actually, even the advertisement for it on the radio, I don't know if those of you who are old enough to remember or not, but even the advertisement for Night of the Living Dead on the radio was really, really scary. Boy, that was scary. Whoa. It used to freak me out, but then again, I liked it too. So there he was, a fan of zombies. First time caller line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art.
Yes.
This is Jerry from Nashville. I'm a black person, and I've read Ghost Wolf's manuscript, and I think that probably what...
Would you turn your radio off, please?
I sure will. Mm-hmm. I think probably what he's... President is getting at is just sort of moving forward, recreating our thoughts throughout his manuscript. You know, he speaks of different meetings and...
Isn't that a beautiful manuscript?
Oh, it is. It is. It's just lovely. But I don't think, I mean, I certainly don't require an apology, but I just think that perhaps, you know, I get the impression that we need to change the direction, and so we just need to start somewhere. You know, even with the Indians, you know, just... the people that probably, the people that did this are no longer here, but it's just a way of starting. You know, I'm on my prayer bones all the time, asking for forgiveness for anything I've done to people, you know, and...
But everything in other words, every group has done something to another group. Blacks were here, and they helped, in many cases, fight against the Native Americans.
You are absolutely right. I mean, I think we all should be, you know, I think this should be, he should be speaking, you know, for everybody. I agree with that.
And then maybe the British owe us a big apology, and we no doubt owe the Mexicans an apology. I mean, we can all begin apologizing to each other for everything that's happened in the past.
Right, you're absolutely right.
I would just like to know if there's really anything that you feel would come of the president apologizing for slavery. Would there be any difference in your life, in people's hearts, or anything?
No, not at all. I just feel that this is just a way of, you know, starting over and improving, you know, the future for us, because I get the impression that our thoughts, you know, are causing us to move towards destruction, and that's the only thing that I see.
There's no question about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you very much. Move toward destruction. We are doing that. Now, if I could understand in some way that an apology from the president really would change hearts, and at least he had that part right. I mean, we've already made the laws, and for the most part, they're followed. But that does not change a person's heart, and you can't legislate that. So, if I thought that the apology would change hearts, then I'd be for it. But I don't think so, and so I think all he's doing, it seems like anyway, all he's doing is just sort of putting out there something to be argued about. Moreover, he didn't really do it, and to me, he should have had the body parts to just come out and give the apology. If he had it in his mind to do it, then he should have just done it. He doesn't have to ask us, in effect, permission to do it. You know, like there'll be a poll, and then if the American people decide collectively in a poll that an apology is in order, then he's going to go ahead and make it. If not, why then we'll hear no more about it. I just don't like the way he's doing that. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Art.
Yes.
I was just listening to what you had to say to that last caller.
Yes.
And I've got to agree with you. This is pretty much redundant. I'm a white man married to a black woman, and I see where no apology would do anything. I mean, it's ridiculous. If they're going to do anything, you know, why not apologize to the Native Americans for robbing their land from them?
I don't know. I mean, there have been injustices perpetrated by peoples upon peoples for as long as there have been peoples.
Right, I hear you.
So, I'm not sure what he's doing back there. I guess he wants something to be argued about. I don't know.
being that my wife is black, if he wants to do anything, give us the equivalent of the 40 acres and a mule that was promised, I guess. I don't know, this is kind of stupid.
Then you'd have something real to argue about at least.
Right, exactly.
Right. I thank you for the call. 40 acres and mule, or whatever it is Farrakhan wants, or, some sort of remuneration or whatever. We apologized for incarceration of the Japanese, the internment. Incarceration, you picked the word, during the Second World War, as being unconstitutional. Of course, there are survivors of that. I don't think there's anybody around now that was a slave, or anybody around now that was a slave owner. And I don't know, I vacillate between thinking, well, it's an okay thing. It would have been okay if he'd just come out and had done it. But to sort of make it a national question, should we or should we not apologize, which is what I'm getting from what he said in San Diego, I just don't see why we're doing that. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, Art. This is Jack from San Joaquin Valley in California.
Hi, Jack.
Hi, I'm calling about the mention earlier of this law about the technology that allow the police to find concealed weapons in your car.
No. It's worse than that, Jack. In other words, a police car going by on the street could send out a beam to you, and they could literally see through your clothing and see a concealed weapon. That's the technology. Now, how about that?
Well, I wouldn't have a problem with this as long as it was a condition of parole. For everybody on the streets who's just walking around and minding their own business, never been in trouble with the law,
yeah,
I can see where this would be a problem. And this I would have a problem with. If a person's on parole or probation and it's a condition of their parole and they have a search clause, then I can see where this could be initiated for this particular person.
Well, if they identified the person and then did the search electronically, that would be one thing. But to have this device on a police car or in a patrol car as a routine matter, going around looking for people carrying concealed weapons, I don't know. That seems to me like a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment, clearly.
I would tend to agree with you on that point, Art. I can see that. I'm not really certain about how this technology is all-encompassing. First time I've heard about it is on your show tonight.
Right. Well, it's for real. I'm sorry to say it's for real. Thank you very much for the call. It was covered on the Sunday shows. It's not here yet, but it's coming. And they already, have little machines that can literally look through your clothes and see you naked. They are used at some airports. And I suppose it's some sort of offshoot of that. Something that would allow them to detect the presence and see the shape of a gun. Technology. First time caller line, you're on the air. Hi.
Yeah. Is it okay if I have any subject tonight?
Any subject.
Yeah, I just, something I've been kind of noticing when I watch TV and stuff, read magazines. A couple of years ago I was watching an article about the Canadians were upset with the American military about something about certain kinds of hawks or something that are migrating back and forth because the military reason for experiments. And the experiment was that they had a small item attached to the bird's leg that they could track it by satellite. And then that the next step, which was supposed to be available the next year, and this was several years ago, is that thing on their leg would actually be able to transmit a video signal to the satellite. And, this is just kind of giving me an idea of what the technology is out there available. And when I read articles in different science magazines about the global positioning devices that they have.
Oh, yes.
And that they're also working on transmitting badges so that you could wear a badge that would transmit your location. And some of the applications that were talked about was like, you go to Disneyland and you put one on each child. You don't have to worry about, them getting lost.
Sure.
And when I start to piece the whole thing together, and I'm not really one of those conspiracy-minded people, but in general, I don't trust government. But when I think about the whole thing pieced together, when I think about the applications for crime, if I was able to put something on somebody I would know where they are at any time.
Well, the best way you could do that would be not to put it on them, but to
exactly.
but to put it in them.
Yes, put it in them. The chip would, there's that one county, I believe, in some state where they were injecting animals with chips.
Yeah, no, they're doing it all over the place.
Exactly, and it was mandatory in one
But that
county.
requires an active scanner. What they could put in you is an active device that would, in effect, be like an airplane transponder.
Mm-hmm.
And so they could literally track everybody going everywhere.
Right, and the thing is, one of the things I always think about government, the way to get what you want is to have the people demand it. And, when you start talking about how it could solve crime, children would no longer be a threat to be, or not 100%, but your children, you could find out where they are within a blink of a second possibly, and they could, who is going to take anybody's kids anymore with the possibility of being found immediately. When, I'm talking years down the road, when you tie this all in with, you start tying it in with laser satellite technology and different things like that, I start to think, well, if the good citizen, if all the good citizens who have this chip or whatever on them, then you look down the road at, when it comes to control, you could be taken out at any time, at any place, whenever they wanted to.
Well, if they came, do you have children?
Yes.
Yeah. They came to you and said, we could implant this chip in your children, and it would increase their safety manyfold. We'd find them if they got lost or kidnapped or some foul play took place. Would you go for it?
No, not with the way I'm thinking right now. Of course, no.
No chips for my kids, huh?
No chips for my kids. But there's sometimes I think to myself, gee, if I can figure this out, then they've already gone beyond what I'm thinking of. I've even
you know what? You
had
can
talks about they can put it in you without you knowing it.
Yeah, you can almost depend on it. How about this? As everybody goes in for a routine operation, they get implanted.
Yeah.
Think about it. It could be.
Yep.
We'll be right back. All right, back to the lines we go. West of the Rockies, you are on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Art.
How are you?
This is Richard calling from Reno.
Hi, Richard.
Since we're having open lines this evening, I thought I'd like to talk about black helicopters.
Okay.
I've spent, I'm a retired Air Force firefighter, and I spent a good portion of my time during my military career watching the helicopters fly around the airfield.
Yeah.
And most military helicopters are black.
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
And there's a general paranoia. These helicopters got to fly around, and
so what's
I don't know where it started. Excuse me?
What's the big deal?
Nothing. I just wonder what the big deal is with the people's concern about black helicopters.
You're the first call I've had in weeks.
Is it?
Yeah. So it must be just you.
Yeah. Well, no, it's
there could be one hovering outside your window right now.
Quite possibly, Art.
Looking in.
Yes.
Taking in every little detail of your life.
They probably already have it.
That's right.
And the second thing I'd like to talk to you about is your back problems.
Well, that's a sore subject.
Yes, sir, it is. I've had chronic back problems for about 15 years, and I don't refer to it as a bad back. I refer to it as a problem back because if I get to thinking it's a bad back, it'll just get me down and keep me down.
It's a bad back. Mine's a bad back.
Well, sir, don't let it get you down.
Bad back. Oh, no, it doesn't.
I let it slow me down, but I don't let it stop me.
Well, occasionally, about 2-3 times a year, it turns me into a pretzel for a period of a day or two, and then I slowly begin to, come back to a normal person.
Yeah, I'm having that problem now. I'm a long-haul truck driver, Art, and you keep me going quite a bit.
All right, my friend.
You'll be making through some nights. You have a good morning and a good day, huh?
You take care. Yeah, I have a bad back. Now, I created my own bad back. I fell off a pole. I did what in the industry is called burning a pole. You know what burning a pole is? You have two choices when you burn a pole. You can either... Have you ever seen a phone pole up close? Have you ever seen... Well, they have little things sticking out of them. So when you fall off a pole, you have two choices. You can either grab the pole and slide down it, in essence, and they will be picking things out of your body for months to come, and you'll generally get poisoned. Or you can push away from the pole and fall. I chose to push away from the pole and fall. And I came down on my butt and my elbow. And when I did, it compressed two of my vertebrae, L4 and L5. so that every now and then they reach out and touch the adjacent nerve, and when they do, I become like a pretzel for a few days. And that is my bad back. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Yeah, is this still the free calling?
I beg your pardon? No, it's not free calling anymore. Now it's 25 cents per minute.
Okay, well that's okay. I just have a question for you. A couple months back I was listening to your show and you had gotten a fax from the girlfriend of a guy named Billy Bob or something like that who was flying over Area 51.
Yeah, oh yes.
And I listened to it until his radio had cut out, and then I never heard anything more about that. And
there's nothing more to hear. I mean, it's not like you can pick up a telephone and call Area 51, you see.
Yeah, because it was just the concern in your voice when you were trying to get him to not do what he was doing, and then when the radio cut out.
Well, I anticipated the fact that he would be shot down.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I believe occurred. He got shot down.
After that, didn't his girlfriend fax you saying that she was going to see if
That's
she could
right.
find out what happened? And that
That's right.
You haven't heard anything from her?
Nary a word.
Oh, boy.
Uh-huh.
Because I was just wondering about that.
So they probably got her, too, is the way I figured.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care. Yeah, I think they got her. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yeah, Art, this is Gary from St. Louis.
Hello, Gary.
Yeah, you were talking earlier about the electronic thing, the cops being able to look at you and see if you're carrying weapons.
That's right.
Well, geez, Art, they don't really need to do that. They can stop you for any imagined violation and search you in your car without a warrant right now. So what do they need that for?
Well, I guess too many people are complaining about those kinds of searches. So this way they'll be able to just go zzz from their patrol car, and they'll see that you have a gun, and then they will have sufficient cause to search. Now, what I'm saying is, this kind of technology, to me, represents a terrible, terrible invasion of our privacy and a violation of our Fourth Amendment rights. What do you think?
I think it could very well get that far, but I think they're doing that already, Art.
Well,
I mean, the forfeiture laws, drug forfeiture laws, they can take your belongings, your cash. They don't even have to charge you. They don't even have to convict you.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Yeah. Talking about Orwell, yeah.
Yep. Good morning, Mr. Orwell, wherever you are. Thank you. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi there.
It's Tootie in Northern California.
Well, hi.
How are you?
I am well.
Good. Me too. You were talking about chips in people to identify them.
Yes.
I heard a couple of years ago that that's being done already in Bulgaria to the babies that are born there.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Bulgarian babies, of all things?
Mm-hmm.
You would think, wouldn't you, that American babies would be the first, but maybe not.
Oh, because we're the first in everything?
Well, because that kind of technology would be developed here.
Well, I don't know. But anyway, I heard that a couple of years ago, so it's here, it's with us, and, you know.
Well, do you have any children?
No.
No? If you do have any children, as you read today's headlines with children being kidnapped and killed, would you be willing to have a chip implanted in your child?
I'd prefer not.
Suppose they told you, but crime is rampant, children are being taken, children are being assaulted, and this chip would allow us to save your child's life.
I doubt it. I don't think that they could make that kind of assertion, and they certainly couldn't guarantee that, and I don't think it's worth it. I think that the lack of privacy, well, we don't have any privacy anymore, but I mean, enough is enough, and I would prefer not to do that.
Okay. No chip for you, then.
No chip.
Okay, thank you very much for the call. Take care. No chip there. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hi, Art. Steve from South Dakota.
Hello, Steve.
Oh, I was just sitting here burning the midnight oil or the early morning oil, getting ready to send some stuff to Richard, and I hear he's going to be on tomorrow night.
That's true.
And I just wanted to call to tell you how much I enjoyed your show with Stan Tenen.
Oh, wasn't that good?
That was a marvelous show.
Yes.
If you ever have him on again, ask him about the technology of the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Well,
he has quite a theory about some of the things that...
All right, I will ask him, but Richard will have comments about Egypt tomorrow.
Good. Okay. Have you used your have you been out using your scope lately?
My scope.
telescope.
Oh, telescope.
Yes.
You got to say telescopes.
I'm sorry.
Not the last week or two. I've also used my telescope for terrestrial stuff, and it's really cool.
Boy, the moon is really glorious right now.
Is it? Good time to look?
Yeah, it's time to look.
We're coming toward a full moon, aren't we?
Yeah, it's about three-quarter moon right now.
Okay. Well, you're right. Maybe it'd be a good time when I get off to go out there and take a look-see. Thanks. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, Art. This is Kate from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Hi, Kate.
Hi. You discussed a little while ago a certain subject I'd like to just give you a little thought upon. Maybe it might give you an idea or two.
All right.
Okay, it's about suicide.
Yep.
You remember?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a book here that is called Song on the Phoenix from Santa Fe. The lady is called Lily Fairchild.
Yes.
Okay. And it's called, the prefix of the book is called Voices of Comfort and Healing from the Afterlife.
Yes.
Okay, now, it's kind of hard to prove channeling, so I can't tell you this is the honest truth, correct?
Well, that's, people have different points of view about that.
Yes, we do.
You know how I feel about channeling. I'm suspicious.
Well, I am too, because, we don't have proof. Exactly. Okay, but I thought I'd read you this, about 3 paragraphs here, and just turn you on a little bit about this suicide thing, okay?
Okay.
Are you open?
I'm listening. Don't read to me, though.
Here it goes.
No, don't. No.
No, I won't read to you. I'll
Okay.
give you in my own words through spacing.
All right,
okay,
go ahead. Go ahead.
We can afford to read.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, now, what we all call suicide, right,
Yes.
is a deliberate termination of your own life.
Sounds that way to me, yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, now this, when you do that, disrupts a pattern that was set forth and agreed upon by you and your chosen destiny. Apparently, we all have a chosen destiny before we are born.
Well, that's one way of looking at it, but then one could argue that your chosen destiny is to commit suicide.
That could be the case, exactly. Now, it says here, however, of course, agreed upon by you as your choice, you must examine, okay, not only your action, the action you cause on itself, but the intent behind the action to determine whether it is appropriate or inappropriate.
Well, I think that, I don't know exactly what that means, but I would say that one should examine the effect it will have on those left behind. In other words, not consider just yourself, but your family, your children, your friends, all of those who will be affected by your actions. And if you don't consider all of that, then you are committing indeed a very selfish act, aren't you? East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Yeah, good morning. What a treat it is to hear you till 6 o'clock in Philadelphia. I'll tell you, it's incredible. Thanks for the extra hours in the East Coast.
You bet.
Yeah, I'm the one that sent you the email to start out our host, Art and Perump. I'll leave it at that. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you. So they've got us to Philadelphia for the whole show now. Wow. Cool. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hey, good evening, Art.
Good evening, sir.
I was just thinking, I think it's a good idea to implant it in kids, but I'd like to just be sure that they take it out at a certain point,
Whoa. Oh, that's like when they bring on a new tax, and they say the tax will be what's called a sunset tax.
What's that?
Well, that means it's kind of like saying when the sun goes down or when the need for the tax goes away, they will no longer have the tax.
Right.
That's never true.
Yes, good luck trying
So when they get the chip in, the odds of it being taken out, slim and none.
Now, let me ask you a question. If Chupacabra and Bigfoot got into a fight, who would win?
Well, I think Chupacabra, because Chupacabra would reach in and pull Bigfoot's guts out. Now,
True.
it would be arguably a gigantic meal.
That's true.
Perhaps too much for a chupa, but, you know, I think the chupa would take it.
Bigfoot would have the reach, but Chupacabra's got the heart, let's face it.
And the liver, and the spleen,
blood,
and the lungs.
and the eyeballs.
There you go, sir. Thank you for such a gory call at the end of the day. On my international line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
It's your birthday.
Well, you're right, it is.
And I haven't heard anyone sing happy birthday or even say happy birthday to you.
Do not sing happy birthday to me.
All right, we won't.
Actually, I'm going to deal with my birthday tonight when I come on the air.
Good. We missed you your first hour today.
Uh-huh. Where are you?
Up in Vancouver.
Vancouver. Well, we now start the show 1 hour earlier, so the best thing to do is to call your local radio station and ask them to begin carrying the first hour.
Yeah, I did that once, but I think I'll do it again because I sure miss having the beginning of the show.
Okay.
All right, so happy birthday to you, Art. We love you.
Well, thank you, and my guess would be, by the way, now that I think about it, you will probably get the first hour as the next hour. Maybe. I don't know. First time caller line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Bell. My great-great-grandfather had slaves in Texas.
All right. Do you, hold on a sec. Let me redo this here. Do you want to apologize for that now?
No, I don't.
Why not?
I didn't do it.
You don't feel guilty?
I don't feel guilty. And blacks, if
you don't think you have genetic guilt?
I don't have genetic guilt. As a matter of fact, if you'll go back and look at Africa and the history, and you'll find, look at the history of Egypt and northern Africa, you'll find out that blacks and Africans had blacks as slaves there.
You know, I'm glad that you mentioned Egypt. I'm glad you mentioned Egypt because the traditional explanation of how the pyramids got built.
Yes.
Now, shouldn't somebody be apologized to there?
That's right.
Remember all those people that had to tote those big rocks? I saw it in movies.
Another thing tonight, President Clinton was very interesting. Clinton came on and also mentioned that
they were even crushing people between the rocks. I mean, think of the apology those people ought to get.
That's right. There's so many apologies due for a lot of things, and I'm not condoning what my great-great-great-grandfather did. But on the other hand, I just want to say this again, please, is that Clinton came on tonight. He indicated within 30 to 50 years that the white people in the country will be outnumbered. And he's like shoving this down our throats and saying, this is something we're going to have to accept, and we're going to have good race relations, whether we like it or not. And I'm just going to say this, and I've said it before, and you've probably heard me when I've said it previously. Name on your left hand 5 things that a black person has invented, manufactured, brought to market.
Oh, well, you sound like a racist.
No, I'm just being no, sir. I'm not a racist.
I said you sound like a racist.
No. But as a matter of fact, no.
Actually, President Clinton is right about that. We are going to all have to ultimately get along.
No, we don't. That's the problem. The Germans don't. The British, the French don't. You see, they have race problems. Well, they have big race problems in Germany. They're having big race problems also in Britain.
There's race problems all over the world.
That's right.
And ultimately, we're all going to have to get along. And when we finally get our consciousnesses raised enough, maybe we will.
Well, sir, let me just say this one thing. You know, I like your show and I listen to it a lot. You know, and you're married to a Puerto Rican Filipina, and I've seen her. She's a nice-looking lady, and you know, you believe and everybody's going to go gray, and I don't.
Right now,
you in any way.
Right now,
I don't agree with you.
Oh, fine, that's fine. The president right now said that in the last decade, interracial marriage has increased by 20%.
So let's just live the country.
Now that is going to have an inevitable result.
The inevitable result, it will pull the whites down because, you see, look around you. Everything, the ham radio that you love so well, and your computer and your carpet and your desk, those were invented by white people, mainly white men.
Oh, you're just an ignorant person. I'm sorry that you like my show, and I can't imagine why you do. That's very sad. You, sir, are an ignorant person. Have a good morning. Have a nice day. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 a.m. East Coast time. I'm Art Bell from the High Desert. Good night.
Of last year. It's Art's interview with Captain Bill Miller on the mysterious Tampa Triangle. Art is still out with the flu, but should be back for Dreamland live next week. And now, classic Dreamland on this, the absolute best of Art Bell.
I'm Art Bell. Good evening. Dreamland underway, where we do
and talk about very strange things, and tonight is going to definitely be no exception. First thing we're going to do is talk with a man named Robert Bodell, and this is something we kind of plucked from nowhere. Robert, where are you located?
I'm in Ruskin, Florida.
Okay. How far is that from Tampa?
It's about maybe 30 minutes south. I'm on the very end of Tampa Bay.
Oh, okay. So you're near Tampa.
Yeah.
And you sent me a fax, and I just thought the audience ought to hear from you what happened. You're a sailor? You sail? Or?
Yeah, I do a lot of sailboat deliveries.
Okay, and so you were apparently delivering a boat from Tampa to Long Island, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So you were by yourself?
Yeah, most of my deliveries are single-handed.
All right. Tell everybody what happened to you.
Well, of course, I went around the southern tip of Florida and up the east coast to Long Island, which takes me right through the Bermuda Triangle. I've been there a lot of times and seen some strange stuff, but, just not any big deal.
By the way, you mentioned QSL card. That's amateur radio talk. Are you a ham?
No. I listen to shortwave a lot when I'm on the boat.
So you're a shortwave listener. Okay.
Yes.
Then I understand why you made reference. All right. So what happened? You say you've been through the Bermuda Triangle many times. Weird things have occurred?
Yeah. See the compass cards start to spin and strange hazes.
Those things really happen?
Yeah, I guess. They did to me.
They did to you.
Yeah.
All right, but that is not what this is all about. I mean, you said in your fax or your email, that's almost ho-hum. I mean, the things go wrong in the triangle.
Yeah.
So what did happen?
When I got to New York, my logbook was off 3 days. I'd lost 3 days in it.
Are you sure that you did not simply start in the wrong place in your logbook?
No. Well, the first thing I did was to call back here to Florida to my mother and check with her on the day that I left, and that jibed.
Do you have any idea by your logbook or by any other method of measurement where you lost the 3 days?
I have no idea because, amongst other things in my logbook, I keep track of, shortwave radio programs, in case I decide to send off for a QSL card.
Right.
And the book includes the date, the time, which I keep by, WWV, National Bureau of Standards.
Right.
The program content, people's names of songs, the times all this stuff happens. And when I couldn't find any mistakes in my logbook, why, I sent off for the QSL cards and they all came back.
So you kept a very meticulous entry. There must have, so what happened in your logbook then? There was simply a final entry, and then it was 3 days from that date?
My final entry was coming to the dock in Long Island.
Wow. Do you have, was there anything at all that you can recall that occurred before this or during the trip that was particularly unusual? I mean, for example, you went through the Bermuda Triangle. Did you get the normal compass spinning business or haze or anything like that on that trip?
Well, there was one stretch there for about 3 or 4 hours that I just felt strange.
You just felt strange?
Yeah.
In all the time, how long ago did that occur now?
This has been probably, I'd say about 10, 12 years ago.
10 or 12 years ago. And in all the time since then, nothing has occurred to you further to explain how you lost 3 days?
No. It's a total mystery.
A total mystery. Well, Bob, I want to thank you because it kind of leads into where we're going. Mysterious things seem to happen down around the Tampa area and on up into the Bermuda Triangle. And I guess you have nothing to offer in terms of what you think it might be.
No, not at all. In fact, I had heard about the Bermuda Triangle and all that, and sailing through it, and, some of the strange stuff started happening, in the beginning, so I started looking into it, and I've never found any explanation for anything.
Well, I really, really, really appreciate it, Bob, and I know that you took a little time off work to be able to tell us this, and I appreciate your coming on the program.
Okay, well, I appreciate you having me. It's been a pleasure.
Take care, Bob. That's just a regular guy, folks. He sent me some email, and he maintained an absolutely meticulous log on a trip from Tampa up to New York, and 3 days went away. 3 days. Now, this is not the only kind of thing that goes on there. In a moment, you'll hear a lot more about the Tampa area, because coming up, Captain Bill Miller, he's a United States Coast Guard licensed captain, has authored a book called The Tampa Triangle, and that's where we're going next. Are you overweight? Would you like to lose? Called The Tampa Triangle. And from the St. Petersburg Times, I'm going to read a little bit of an article entitled Tales of the Unexplainable. From chupacabras to hitchhiking ghosts, it seems the Tampa Bay area is one weird little place. Not so little, actually. And it begins, imagine Rod Serling is standing before you. His hands clasped in front of him, his eyebrow cocked, he speaks. Consider, if you will, a series of extremely bizarre events taken individually. They're noteworthy, but not especially alarming. A woman bursts into flames while sitting in her living room. Fishing boats disappear without a trace from the Gulf of Mexico. A young blonde woman is repeatedly seen to be hitchhiking on the Sunshine Highway, make that Skyway Bridge, but she too keeps disappearing. A Nazi submarine sinks in the Gulf of Mexico during World War II, and more than 50 years later, people still refuse to even talk about it. And then, of course, the Chupacabra sightings, the ghost sightings at the Don Cesar Resort and Haslam's bookstore, and the people who swear they've had a close encounter with old Hitler, a hammerhead shark the size of, get this, a Ford Explorer that originally patrols the bay. These events did not occur in various cities across the country. No, they all occurred in the same place, Tampa Bay, Florida. And from Tampa Bay, well, actually not from Tampa Bay at the moment. I think he's probably in New York. Here is Captain Bill Miller. Captain?
Good evening, Art. Good evening, Dreamland listeners. Yes, I'm calling from Staten Island, New York. I'm up here working on a dredge survey job on a boat in the harbor.
All right. Well, how long have you been a seafaring man?
Most of my adult life. And I've spent the last 15 years or so as a captain.
All right. Before we get into what you've done, you heard the nice gentleman I had on a moment ago.
That's right.
Bob Bodell. Now,
right.
he's just a, you could tell when you listen to him, just an average guy. But here's somebody who lost 3 days on a trip from Tampa to New York. Have you ever heard of such a thing?
Yes, and Bob is an excellent example of a professional boat captain. He keeps meticulous log entries. He's paying attention to what's going on. He's not easily flapped. And yet, here the and he's made this trip several times, all of a sudden he's missing 3 days. And he's a good example of what is known as the missing time phenomena. And I think frequently that's been attributed to UFO abductees. So perhaps Bob has been a victim of abduction. I don't know.
Perhaps. But also, we hear about we hear about this mist and the compass business in the Bermuda Triangle.
Yes. In fact, I've seen the green mist off of Key Biscayne.
Green mist?
It was a green cloud. I can't explain what exactly it was. I was out there for several months. I was doing a survey of the Gulf Stream, and every day we'd go out and throw a buoy overboard and track it. So we were in the same area twice a day for months. And one day, there was a green fog just off of Key Biscayne. And, of course, right away we turned on all our electronics, our radar, and everything we had. And I sure fired up the engines quick because I didn't want to get caught in it. And then it was there, and it was gone just suddenly. And I had a civil engineer with me aboard the boat, and he's a real skeptical guy. And I said, well, how do you explain that one? And he didn't have an explanation for that one.
All right, what about all your electronics? Did anything tell you that something was going crackers? I mean, what about the compass? Any other magnetic or heading equipment that would tell you something weird is going on?
We lost our GPS and we lost our radios. There was a lot of static on the radios. I had the radar up and running, but it didn't show anything.
The radar showed nothing. You lost radios and you lost GPS.
Right.
Now, GPS is a constellation of satellites that orbit the Earth. So you lost low-frequency radio and you lost the spectrum all the way up through satellite.
Yes. And it came back shortly after the cloud disappeared. So I don't know. It was like a fog, like a low fog, but it wasn't a fog. Because it was a beautiful morning. And it was there, and then it was gone. So it was an interesting phenomenon to see.
Well, fog I've seen. Green fog I've never seen.
Right.
And don't particularly care to see, as a matter of fact.
Right, and I see fog all the time. I know the difference.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, we've moved a little bit away from what we really wanted to talk about, and that is Tampa. We know about the Bermuda Triangle. What is the Tampa Triangle? And then further, your book is actually called Tampa Triangle Dead Zone. That's pretty ominous. What do you mean, dead zone?
Okay. Well, Tampa Triangle is describes the atmosphere of paranormal activity in the Tampa Bay area. And the dead zone is an actual stretch of shipping channel in the Tampa Bay shipping. The Tampa Bay shipping channel is 48 miles long, and yet one small stretch of channel, 4 miles long, there's been over 3 major maritime disasters with a loss of over 58 lives. And when you consider, a lot of people say, well, gosh, there's shipwrecks all the time. Well, I'm up here in New York Harbor. There's tons of bridges. There's all kinds of ships coming and going like crazy, and yet they don't have anything like the shipwrecks we've had in this short little benign stretch of shipping channel in lazy southern Tampa Bay, Florida.
Apparently not so benign.
No, in fact, it's a relatively straight stretch of channel, and yet in 1980, in January of 1980, a Coast Guard vessel was outbound. It was a buoy tender, the Blackthorn, and it had a head-on collision with an inbound oil tanker. This was at 8 o'clock at night. It's almost unfathomable that a Coast Guard cutter would have a collision with anything, let alone a huge oil tanker.
Well, don't both ships have lights and radar and all that kind of stuff?
Right, exactly.
So how could that occur?
Well,
you would imagine that at least one of the ships would see the lights of the other or would detect the other with radar. I mean, ships are not small things.
Yes, exactly. They're like huge city blocks moving down a shipping channel.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. And yet they almost collided head on. In fact, the tanker's anchor dropped on the side of the buoy tender. And after all the anchor chain ran out, the anchor line came tight and it caused the buoy tender to capsize. 23 Coast Guardsmen died in that disaster.
Oh my God.
The largest peacetime Coast Guard disaster in the nation's history.
There must have been an official investigation.
Well, there was a lot of finger pointing that went on, of course.
Of course.
But eventually everyone pretty much walked away without any blame or too much blame. They said the Coast Guard guys weren't really paying attention, and they pretty much exonerated the guy on the tanker.
So they really had to find an official way to sort of spread the blame around and not clobber anybody. But the truth was they simply could not explain it.
Right. And then 3 months later, an inbound light freighter is coming up the bay, and it runs into the Sunshine Skyway Bridge and knocks it down.
What?
35 people died.
What?
Yep, the freighter was inbound. All of a sudden, and all this activity happens right around the Sunshine Skyway Bridge.
What were the weather conditions like at the time?
A freak storm blew up just before the ship reached the bridge. It was less than a mile away from the bridge when a horrific rainstorm blew up. High winds, gale force winds, and fierce rain. It was sudden. It was quick.
Okay.
The pilot didn't have a chance to stop the ship. He continued on course. He'd done it over 800 times. He'd made over 800 passages through the bridge. He felt confident he could make it. He saw the bridge on his radar. Everything looked good. And yet somehow he got 800 feet off course and knocked the bridge down. 35 people died as a result. There was many cars that went over the broken bridge and even a Greyhound bus. The course recorder on the ship had a course recorder very similar to a black box on an airplane.
Sure.
The course recorder showed the ship dead on in the center of the shipping channel passing under the bridge.
Good Lord. Well, again, there had to have been, as there is with every maritime disaster, there had to have been an investigation.
They exonerated the pilot of the ship. They said he acted with due care under the circumstances. So he was exonerated. An interesting sidebar on that shipping disaster story is the ghost of the Greyhound bus. A Greyhound bus went over that bridge that morning.
Yes.
And 25 passengers aboard died along with the bus driver. And many people have...
What?
The original bridge has been knocked down and there's now fishing piers there and they built a nice big new bridge.
Wait. You mean they died because they plunged into the water?
Yes, the Greyhound bus plunged over the abyss where the center span of the bridge was knocked down, and the bus plunged 150 feet to the water, and all aboard were killed. But people have seen the ghost of the Greyhound bus. Fishermen have been fishing out on the Skyway Bridge out there early in the morning. It's foggy. They hear the high-pitched sound of rubber tires, big truck tires on the pavement, and they turn to look. And they see the bus coming. It's a Greyhound bus. And as it approaches closer, they can see the driver. And his hands are gripping the wheel, and he's looking straight ahead, and he looks scared. And then as the bus goes past, they see all the passengers in the bus, and they're sitting in their seats, and they're all staring straight ahead, except for the last window. The last window on the side of the bus, there's a woman looking out, and she's smiling, and she's waving her hand mechanically. And then the bus is gone.
You know, you can't imagine how that freaks me out. It launches me into a discussion about what a ghost is. I mean, we all imagine we have a soul, and that when we die, it moves somewhere else, hopefully in an up direction. But I hear stories like this, and it sounds like a place of the damned, having to relive some horrible, horrible end again and again and again.
We have a local psychic named Caroline Hart. She's a wonderful woman, and she's worked with several of the families of passengers who were aboard the bus that morning. And she says, a quote from her is that, Caroline Hart says, in regards to the visuals that the fishermen are getting about the bus load of people looking straight ahead, it may be the collective consciousness of those spirits that are still trapped in the energy field of the bus. It creates a visual scene based upon the awareness of impending disaster, which is held on to by the spirits of those that went into the water.
But it doesn't answer the question about whether the immortal souls of these poor people are really trapped doing this again and again, or whether it's some kind of weird echo left from a tragedy. It's a question I've been trying to answer about ghosts and poltergeists and those sorts of apparitions, which seem damned to go through the same thing again and again and again. And I can only hope that it is not really the soul of these people, but some sort of I don't know. I wish I did know. Some sort of echo. Do you have a theory? Either way.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's an important question. Particularly if you're the family of one of those people, or I suppose one of those people. All right, Captain Miller, stand by. We'll be back to you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
again, let's stick on the subject of ghosts for a few moments, because this has been driving me absolutely crazy. It's frankly one of the reasons that I do this program. In other words, we look into life after death in lots of different ways. And one of them, obviously, has got to be ghosts. If you can prove there are ghosts, then I think that you prove that there is an existence beyond the physical. So it's very, very, very important. And there are other examples down within the Tampa Triangle of ghost activity, aren't there?
Yes, sir. In fact, right on the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, the same place where the ghost of the Greyhound bus is frequently seen, is the ghost of the blonde hitchhiker. Now, in the folklore of ghost literature, there's many instances of hitchhikers that are ghosts. But we have one on the Sunshine Skyway Bridge that is seen by so many people that it's become regular for cars with out-of-state plates to pull up to the toll plazas on either side of the bridge and report this ghost. And what they describe is this. They say as they're driving along the road, and usually these are senior citizens or older people or professional people who would normally not stop for a hitchhiker. And yet they see this young woman standing by the side of the road, and she looks like she's disheveled, or maybe she's just had a fight with her boyfriend or something.
Right.
Perhaps they're reminded of their own daughter. So they break with their normal rule of not picking up hitchhikers, and they stop and they pick this young woman up.
Right.
And she gets into the back seat of the car. Now, they say that she appears to be dressed in 70s fashion. She has a white peasant blouse and I think a jean skirt and long blonde hair, which appears to be disheveled. And she climbs into the back seat of the car, and they continue forward, and they have conversation with this woman as they crest the bridge, as they're going up the incline to the top of the bridge. And then as they get to the apex of the bridge, the top of the bridge, they hear no noise from the back seat. The woman's not talking, and when they turn around to look, they don't see her, and they think, well, gosh, perhaps she's passed out or something. Maybe she's fallen down onto the floor. So they really look over the back seat, and that's when they see she's gone.
Gone.
And not there. She's disappeared. So then they stop at the toll plaza, which is on either side of the bridge, and they tell what happened to them. And the toll plaza people have had so many people stop and tell them about this that they're pretty blasé about it. And they say, yes, we'll tell the highway patrol and go on and about their business. In fact, one of the toll plaza, the lady that is the manager of the North Toll Plaza on the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, has actually seen the ghost herself. And she's a pretty responsible witness.
What history is there of this young lady? I mean, do we know that she was killed at that location, or that a blonde was killed, or anything at all?
One psychic has said that they feel that it's a woman who rode her moped to the top of the bridge and jumped.
Yeah, there we go. Let me tell you one. You're supposed to be here telling ghost stories, but let me tell you one that I've had verified by literally hundreds of people, and this one gives me the heebie-jeebies. The story comes from San Antonio, and I can't recall the name of the road, although I knew it. It involves a railroad crossing. I wonder if you know the story. A school bus full of children got stuck on between the railroad tracks. It got stuck right on the tracks and in between the things that come down, or there were none there. And I'm trying to recall this exactly right. A train hit that bus. It killed, I forget how many children, I believe all of the children in the bus, or the majority of them. And every night of the week, you can go to that location and you can stall a car on the tracks. And I mean so that the engine will not start. You can stall it even though a train is not coming. And you can get in your car, and people have to be sure of this, they have taken talcum powder and spread it across the back of their car. And guess what? You get into your car, and something pushes your car out from sitting on top of the tracks, as if it doesn't matter whether your brake is on or whatever. and this is a true story, and inevitably you go back to the back of the car and you look, and there are small handprints on the back of the car.
My, that's an amazing story.
It's a worrisome story, along with what you've told. In other words, those children, or the spirits of those children, appear to be there, pulling people out of danger, so the same thing, obviously, cannot occur to them. And it goes back again to what the heck is a ghost? If it's an immortal soul caught in some sort of damnation, then we've got a lot to think about, don't we? If it's just some sort of weak echo of what happened and doesn't really mean the soul of that person is doing it again and again, then perhaps it's something else. It's one of the mysteries I would like to solve. Anyway, back to the Tampa Triangle.
Let me tell you real quick about the ghost of the romantic trout fisherman. This is a ghost, the spirit of a man who's only seen by women. And there's a park right out by the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. It's a very popular county park.
Yes.
And women report going out to the park, and they're out there fishing, and they report seeing a very handsome man in his late 30s or early 40s, and he's waiting along the flats, casting his lure out, trout fishing. And he gets closer to him, and he's kind of smiling at him and kind of flirting and winking, but he doesn't speak. And when he seems to get closer, they kind of move down the shore trying to get a little closer, hoping maybe he'll speak to him and they can get something going. And as they get closer, he disappears. And the women have gone to the bait shop and talked about this and mentioned it to the bait shop clerk. And the bait shop clerk says, "Oh, you saw Dalton, the ghost of the romantic trout fisherman. And he's only seen by women."
Only by women. All right, we did a show once, an entire program on spontaneous human combustion.
Right.
It is a very strange topic, Captain. As a matter of fact, I've got some photographs of one doctor, for example, who burned up. They're very gory up on my website, and all that you see is this spot. He was in the bathroom doing his thing at the moment that he burned, and all that's left is his leg and the charred remains of a very incredibly intense fire that occurred locally. Didn't even set the house on fire. Charred it. In fact, burned right through the floor, but didn't set any of the rest of the house on fire, but burned him up completely with the exception of one leg. Pretty horrible, but it's a real photograph. And I understand there was a combustion incident in the Tampa Triangle, wasn't there?
That's right. Perhaps one of the most studied scientifically instances of spontaneous human combustion did occur right here in St. Petersburg, Florida, in the heart of the Tampa Triangle. It was the case of Mary Harder Reeser. And, what you're saying is right. It just takes incredible heat to consume a body. Funeral directors say that to cremate a human body, it takes temperatures of at least 2,500 to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit for several hours.
Yep.
To reduce the body. And even then they have to put the bones and the leftover parts into like a big dryer that's got steel balls, and it pulverizes everything, called a cremulator.
So to get a human being to dust requires what you just described.
Yeah, incredible heat. And yet, in these cases of spontaneous human combustion, the thing that's most baffling is that very flammable objects right next to the person are maybe covered with a little soot or grimy with
that's right.
smoke, but they don't go up in flames. And we're talking about curtains and drapery and, simple things that would go up in a heartbeat.
I know. So the implication is it really is internal, or it begins internally in the human body. What about this particular case? What happened?
Well, Mary Reeser was a widow. Her husband was a doctor. And when he died, she moved down to St. Petersburg, Florida, to live near her son, who was also a doctor.
Sure.
And she was sitting. In fact, this happened right around the corner from my sister's house. This happened in the early 50s. She was sitting in her easy chair and just went up in smoke. And the amazing thing was that there wasn't a lot of smoke that came out of the apartment or anything. None of the furnishings were damaged, and all that was left was her foot. Everything else was...
What?
All that was left with her, when the firemen came in, her landlord did smell smoke in the morning, finally. But it wasn't like it was... In fact, the landlord thought that the insulation on the irrigation pump had overheated or, had burned through. And so it wasn't a major smoke that she was smelling. And so when they finally opened the door to Mary Harder Reeser's apartment and went inside, they found this burned easy chair and a foot and nothing more.
Sounds exactly like the one I described to you.
Yes, it
God.
did. Firemen say, that if somebody, they go to a lot of places where people have died from smoking in bed or whatever.
Sure.
And they talk about this one fire captain said, well, it's kind of like meat that's been burned on the barbecue grill or something. It's burned, but it's not consumed totally to ash. It's just...
Actually, I think it's impossible. In other words, without there being something else at work here, I think it's just absolutely impossible. What percentage of the human body is water?
Right. I mean,
tremendous. Most of us, we're made up of water.
Right.
We're not flammable, particularly.
Okay.
So it's just flat impossible. Do you have any ideas? I mean, I thought I would ask you what you think could do that.
Well, the FBI came in and examined the case, and their finding was that it was unusual and improbable. They determined that no known chemical agents were involved. It wasn't smoking.
Unusual and improbable. Is that the actual?
That's the actual finding from the FBI, which is kind of like double talk for we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And that also occurred in that same triangle area.
Yes, sir.
Now, it's incumbent on me as we discuss these stories to ask you, how do you document that things are occurring in a specific area at a more frequent rate, internal human combustion, ships plowing into bridges or into each other, more so than down in the Florida Keys or up there in New York where you are right now? How do you come to the conclusion that you've got a special area?
Well, that's a real good point. A lot of people say, well, geez, it's just a shipwreck or something like that. And then, of course, you look at New York Harbor where there's tons of shipping and they have relatively few shipwrecks or only fender benders. And yet, in this one small stretch of channel, we've had 3 major maritime disasters. And as I started looking at those 3, in fact, that's how I started writing the book, or writing the story, was about how things happen in threes. And as I started researching it in the library, I started turning over all these other unusual maritime events that took place in the dead zone. And for years, people that I've worked with on the waterfront have called that the dead zone, and that's because their radars fail or their electric steering goes out or their hydraulic steering. They have all kinds of unusual malfunctions right in this relatively small stretch of channel. And this is after crossing oceans and everything. Mm-hmm. So what I tried to do was document it, and I footnoted everything that I found with the source, of course, and everything.
Okay, but it's not specific to the water, is it? In other words, it seems specific to the area, both land and water, above the water, on the land, in the water.
Yes, in fact, just this past Christmas, a week before Christmas, an apparition of the Virgin Mary appeared on a glass building in Clearwater, Florida.
Really?
It was a huge,
you know what?
Image of the Virgin Mary.
I think that I may have heard about that. I think the Associated Press or somebody did a story on that.
It was a big story.
Uh-huh.
The image of the Virgin Mary appeared on this glass building, the glass face of the building, and nobody could explain it. And of course, the skeptics right away said, "Oh, it's well water on the glass." Except that this image was 3 or 4 stories high, and just by chance, they had a convention of glass scientists from Pittsburgh Plate Glass, and these are the top guys in the industry. So the local newspaper loaded all these scientists onto the bus and brought them over to the Virgin Mary,
naturally,
to see what they said, and they couldn't explain it. And these are the guys that, are really into glass, and they could not explain how this was on there.
Are there any photographs of this?
Oh, yes. In fact, it's very big. It's a very big thing. It's in Clearwater, Florida. The image of the Virgin Mary. In fact, the owners of the building are kicking the tenants out, and they're turning it into a shrine.
Really?
So they've had over 1 million visitors since December.
Well,
to this.
Captain, I have a kind of a theory about these things, and I don't know whether you want to hear it or not. It involves, I wrote a book called The Quickening, which, by the way, folks, please don't call. You cannot order it right now. It's not even available. It's all sold out. But the idea, Captain, is that things on this earth, human behavior, social human behavior, the way we're treating each other, our economy, our ecology, the environment, in other words, everything, the weather, you name it, everything is getting faster. Everything is speeding up at an exponential rate. And we're headed toward an event. And as we get closer to this event, things like apparitions, Marian apparitions, and that sort of thing are increasing. And they definitely are. And that's my theory about that. I believe we're being given a message of some kind. I'm not exactly sure what or what we're being told, but I suspect it has something to do with straightening out our act or else. You have any thoughts?
I think you're right on target, Art.
Well, I don't know that I want to be on target. I just think that it is going on. And it's particularly going on in the Tampa area. Would you spend time in that dead zone?
Well, I sail through it quite frequently as part of my job. But as with most captains, I'm always real glad to get through it and get under the bridge. Captain Robert Trice, a good friend of mine, runs tugboats through there all the time. And he said when he passes through that bridge, he says the wheelhouse gets cold and clammy. He said he can almost feel the souls of the dead reaching up from the waters. He said it's a really eerie feeling.
All right. Captain, hold tight. We'll get back to you in a moment. Almost feel the souls of the dead. Here we go again. And, Captain, I've had several faxes already. One says, wasn't there a green fog at the Philadelphia experiment? Makes you wonder if it couldn't be somehow related, from Sally in Washington State. And Sally is exactly right. There was a green fog reported when they did the Philadelphia experiment, Captain. Had you heard that?
Yes, great comment.
And one other that I want to read for you, Captain. You'll enjoy this. Maybe you even know about it. Hi, Art. I thought your guest, Captain Miller, should know about a very strange marine incident that occurred not far from where he's located on Staten Island, Friday, September 15th, 1995. Listen now, folks. The passengers aboard a Staten Island ferry boat were astonished to witness a huge object just to the left of their ferry as it was coursing to the south toward Staten Island. The object apparently simply rose out of the water between the ferry and Governor's Island. It paced the ferry for about 8 to 10 minutes and then simply disappeared from view. All the witnesses reported that the water was, quote, boiling, unquote, underneath the object. It was as tall as a 6 to 8 story building. It was even seen by police on the shore, and the 911 facilities in New York City received multiple calls from other individuals who also saw it. Further, a videotape about the incident has been produced and aired in the New York area. I've got a copy of it. Very interesting. I've talked to many of the individuals who were aboard the ferry who witnessed the object, and their stories are spine-chilling, very sincere. Thought you might like to know that the captain is sitting very close to the site of that event. Have you ever heard of that, Captain?
No, but that's an exciting story, and I was on the Staten Island ferry today. That's really a great story. Governor's Island is, of course, the Coast Guard base here, too.
Yes, indeed.
But, boy, that's a terrific story. That's right where I'm working.
And that comes from the National UFO Reporting Center. It was just faxed to me, and I would love to get a copy of that videotape, Captain. So I guess strange things occur at sea.
Oh boy, I'll tell you. And you talked about the Magellan GPS.
Oh,
excellent unit. It sets the standard for excellence in the GPS navigation industry. They're wonderful units.
I know it, and we can't keep them.
Yep.
We can't keep them. They sell out, and then they're so sold out that about every 6 months we get a shipment. They go.
Just top of the line. They're great. They're great units. Real quick. Remember we were talking about Mary Harder Reeser,
yes,
the lady who spontaneously human combusted.
Yes.
Well, her spirit came back. Her son, who was the doctor, reported that family members would encounter her ghost in their home, and they smelled the distinctive odor of her perfume, and it was particularly found powerful in the guest room, which was entirely furnished with her furniture from her home in Pennsylvania. The Reeser's dog, Wriggles, refused to enter the guest room where the mother's furniture was kept. Dr. Reeser said that after they sold the furniture, the spirit left with the furniture. And he said it wasn't the house that was haunted, it was Mother Reeser's furniture. Maybe she just loved it too much, Dr. Reeser said. And that's from a medical doctor who has encountered his mother's ghost.
Well, that's kind of fun. Yeah, you know, how do you take all this in? I mean, how do you absorb it? When I absorb it, it puts me in a very strange state, as I think I've already described to you, because I'm so concerned about what might come after. How do you assimilate all this information? I mean, you hear about all these things, you write about all these things. What does it do to you?
It's been really exciting for me because I kind of just stumbled onto it. I didn't start out to write about the paranormal. I started to write out about shipping disasters. And yet the more I looked into it, the more unusual events bubbled to the surface.
All right. You know something also about the Chupacabra, don't you?
Yes, that's right. In fact, there's been several sightings of the Chupacabra in the Tampa Bay area. I'm sure all your listeners are familiar with the Chupacabra story. It's a very popular in the Hispanic community who've seen many sightings of it. A lot of people feel that the Chupacabra, which is I think it's been described as 3 to 4 feet tall, with spines like coming out of the back of its head.
Mm-hmm.
It's a blood-sucking type animal. It's particularly tough on farm animals and livestock. There's been many sightings in Puerto Rico. A lot of people have suggested that the Chupacabra is perhaps a chemical weapons experiment by Castro or some other government that's gone bad.
It wouldn't surprise me. I don't know. Are you able to document, what are you able to document in terms of not just sightings, but attacks on animals or even humans? Has there been any of that?
Well, there's been some livestock mutilations right down where our buddy Bob, the boat captain lives, Bob Bunnell, in Ruskin. And Ruskin's a farming community. One of the things that I heard is that they think that perhaps it may have come up on the ships which come up from the Caribbean. May have gotten, there's been many sightings in Miami, which is a heavy shipping port, and Tampa, of course, has some shipping coming in from the Caribbean also.
There was a car. Now, I'm sure you probably saw the story, and it was either near Fort Lauderdale, I believe Fort Lauderdale, somewhere between there and Miami, and a car was attacked.
Jeez.
And they actually found teeth marks on a bumper.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, I know. Holy smokes. Nobody wants to think about something like that. All right, listen, I would like to begin taking some calls, Captain, but if there's anything else you want to get in as we go, you just feel free to drop it in, all right?
Okay, great.
All right, let's see what we can do. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Captain Bob Miller. Hi.
Hello, Art.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks. This is Bruce in Sarasota, Florida.
Good, Bruce. Turn your radio off, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks.
Quite all right. Hold while he turns off his radio. He's got some hum or something. Well, partner, I don't know what happened to you there. Sorry about that. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Captain Bill Miller. Hello.
Yeah, hi there. This is Mike from Minneapolis.
Hello, Mike.
I have a theory about the spontaneous human combustion. And if you remember some discussions Art had with Mark Taylor Canfield
Yes.
About the thing called sonoluminescence.
This is Art you're talking about.
Oh, Art. Hi, Art. If you remember your discussion with Mark Taylor Canfield about sonoluminescence.
Yes.
Where sound waves were propagated through liquid, which caused, within 1/100th of a second, to the liquid to heat within 10,000 degrees. If for some reason sound waves could start a chain reaction in a human, it could superheat the blood, which could heat to that 10,000 degrees.
That's interesting. I appreciate that call. I guess that's as good an explanation as any, but not good enough. In other words, I still, in my wildest dreams, cannot imagine what something made mainly of water can suddenly just burn to a cinder, leaving everything around it basically untouched. It's wild. Speaking of wild card line, you're on the air with Captain Miller. Hello.
Good evening, Mr. Bell.
Good evening. Where are you?
This is Robert from the San Joaquin Valley, California.
Yes, sir.
I've got two things, sir. Good evening, Mr. Miller.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. Captain Miller.
Captain Miller. How do you do, sir?
Good evening.
I'm looking here, Tuesday, June the 16th, 1992, from Associated Press. This pertains to the submarine that you mentioned that disappeared.
Yeah.
It says here, 50 years ago, Nazi team invades Florida. It says that the Germans are welcome on the Florida beaches these days, but 4 who slipped ashore at the then deserted northern Florida beach 50 years ago today came by submarine, not an airliner. In the early morning of June the 16th, 1942, 4 paddled a rubber raft ashore from U-boat 584. They struggled with 4 large waterproof cases containing enough explosives to level factories, blow up bridges and canals, and terrorize Americans in stores and train depots. They were part of a Nazi Operation Pistorius, which had begun in the United States before the war. The plan was for 2 teams to rendezvous in St. Louis July the 4th and begin a campaign of sabotage and terrorism that would be joined by later waves of German agents. The 4 who landed on Long Island were arrested in New York City. 2 members of the Florida group were arrested in New York City, and the other 2 were picked up in Chicago. The arrest occurred between June the 20th and June the 27th. The 8 were convicted by a secret military tribunal on August the 2nd, 1942. 6 of them were executed August the 8th in an electric chair in Washington, D.C. The 2 others, who had cooperated with authorities, were imprisoned, then deported to Germany in 1948. The U-boat was never seen again.
Wow. All right, that'll put us straight into a story from Captain Miller. Captain, there was something, wasn't there, about a Nazi submarine?
That's right, and I'm familiar with his story. That's absolutely right. German submarines, Nazi submarines, were very common in the Florida waters in the early part of the war. In fact, they picked off our shipping like sitting ducks, because at that time we didn't have the blackout regulations in effect, and the tankers would go past Miami or go up the coast, right, and the subs would have to just go out, where they'd get up on the surface and knock them out of the water. So sub traffic in this area was very strong. I turned up, as I grew up in Tampa Bay, one reoccurring story, which always interested me, was the story of the sunken German U-boat that was supposed to be sunk off Tampa Bay. And every few years it would kind of pop to the surface, and we'd all talk about it when we were fishing and stuff. But I never really got the details. So when I started looking into this book, that's one of the stories I researched. And it's the story of the U-166, which is a 1XC class German submarine. And its mission was to come over and lay mines in Tampa Bay to disrupt the shipbuilding effort. They had some shipbuilding factories up in Upper Tampa during the war.
Would make sense.
Right? It came to the surface, and this just happens to be, it was Halloween night in 1942. And it was late in the evening, and it had been submerged all day running on batteries, and it came to the surface just before dark to charge its batteries. And it just so happened that a U.S. naval blimp was in the area and saw its surface. And, of course, they radioed headquarters right away. Mm-hmm. And headquarters radioed out to a destroyer escort to attack the sub, track it down and attack it.
Of course.
several hours of deck charging followed, and the sub ran out of power and ended up on the floor of the Gulf of Mexico. It was forgotten until the late 1950s, when a fellow named Jim Hall, who's one of the greatest hard hat divers in the United States, was out doing what he calls junkyard diving. And that means he had some relatives who were in the Navy, and they had locations of wrecks, and he'd go out and search them for anything that might be of value.
Right.
Junkyard diver. So Jim Hall found the location of this German submarine, and he went out to dive on it. And what he did was he cut a hole in the bottom of it so that the atmosphere would stay inside the submarine. And then he climbed up through the bottom of the sub into the sub.
Makes sense.
So there was still atmosphere in there. But he had to leave on his diving equipment because he didn't know how polluted the atmosphere was. Chemicals from the batteries and everything.
Very ancient and probably very polluted with all kinds of things. Human remains, oh, God, you can only imagine.
Well, listen, one of the first compartments he goes into, he opens the door, a watertight door into the engine room. And as he shines his light around the engine room, he starts to see the corpses of the German sailors. But there's something odd about them. They're tanned. And he looks a little closer, and he can't understand how these guys that could be under the water for 25, 20 years.
Wait. First of all, you said there was an atmosphere in there.
Right.
Second of all, there shouldn't have been anything but bones.
Oh, no.
Much less tanned. Tanned?
Yes, it's a watertight. Remember, they have all the watertight doors closed in the engine, and the engine room is separated from the other compartment.
Yes.
Standard operating procedure. He goes into the engine room, and he sees these bodies, and the skin appears to be tanned. And when he looks closer, he realizes they really are tanned. They've been tanned like leather by the petroleum fumes in the engine room, the oil.
Oh.
So they were tanned. So then he moved forward into the next compartment and finally into the control room. And yes, you're right. Those remains were just skeletonized. But he said it was a very eerie thing. Anyway, he went on to search through the submarine. There wasn't really anything worth taking or having.
Yeah. I'd have been out of there when I saw the tanned sailors, submariners.
Creepy stuff.
I would have been out of there.
He's a tough guy. And a nice guy, too. Anyway, about this time, the government starts getting in touch with him. And they say, Jim, you got to leave this submarine alone. And Jim, who's dove on many wrecks, says, what's the big deal? He says, there's sunk subs all around the coast of Florida, and there's several of them. And the government admits they're out there. What's the big deal about this one? And he was told, Jim, we don't care about the submarine. It's what's near it that we're afraid people will stumble over when they're looking for this sub. And because Jim Hall was making so much money working for the government and doing other stuff, he had to leave the sub alone. It's really quite an interesting story, and he wouldn't really say what he thinks is sunk out there near that sub or what is near that sub. So that's open to question. But there's been a huge cover-up, which I meticulously researched and documented in my book, of where our local Congressman Young, inquired with the Navy Department about that sub, and the Navy Department came back and told him it wasn't out there, that it was off Louisiana. They lied to the congressman.
So maybe somebody should go look again. Not me, not you, but somebody.
I'm not going out there.
No, I wouldn't go out there
but
either.
There's something out there that the government doesn't want us to know about.
All right, Jim, hold on. Captain Jim Miller is my guest. Wow, some pretty neat stories, huh? Listen, folks, we'll tell you how to get Tampa Triangle Dead Zone when we come back from the break. In the meantime, I just want to drop a quick one on you here. We have 2 cruises coming up. Cruises, and I live in Tampa, and I'd like to share a story with you and the captain. I delivered papers for the St. Petersburg Times for about 8 months, starting last August. My paper route encompassed an area northeast of Tampa called Odessa that's sparsely populated in some areas and completely devoid of streetlights except for the occasional house light in the distance. One road in particular gave me the shivers at 4:30 in the morning, particularly when listening to your program. It's called Patterson Road. It's not only dark, but it winds with several 90-degree turns that can catch an unsuspecting driver by surprise. It's not very uncommon to find cars along the road twisted around trees at these dangerous turns. Well, when I began this route, a fellow delivery person who recently gave up the route asked me about a female jogger that she would see every night along Patterson Road. She told me that she almost hit her every time, since she would just appear out of nowhere. I didn't think anything of it until my wife filled in for me about a month after I began in passing. She told me about a jogger that she almost hit while she was driving on Patterson Road the next night. I drove very slowly to try to find the jogger, to no avail. Again, I simply forgot about it, the jogger, until my wife subbed for me again and told me about the incident again. I thought hard about it, and I came to the conclusion that I was taking a different route, and therefore I'd drive down Patterson about half an hour earlier than my wife would. I decided to take her route one night and arrive at Patterson Road at exactly the time she normally would. Well, that night I found the jogger appearing instantly as my wife had described, and I was shocked when I saw her, needless to say. After I passed her, I decided to turn around and go back to investigate further. I had my suspicions about this mysterious jogger, and guess what? As I headed back, the jogger disappeared just as she had appeared. Perhaps the captain has heard of this ghost, and if so, could he elaborate at all? That's from James in Tampa. Captain?
Well, it gives me chills. I haven't heard about that particular ghost, but it's certainly a good story, an interesting story, and a spirit that's being seen by several people, too.
And it's right down there in the middle of your triangle.
The Tampa Triangle Dead Zone.
Where do people get this book, Captain?
Well, you can order through our 800 number. It's 1-800-929-7447.
7447.
1-800-929-7447. We've got a website, but it's not as good as yours, Art.
Well, no, that's quite all right. What is your website?
Our website is www.artquarter, one word, artquarter, ARTQUARTER.com/Tampa Triangle, one word, Tampa Triangle.
Wow. All right, what's on there?
Well, we've got some excerpts from the book, a little bit of discussion from me. So there's some interesting things in there. There's also some of the artwork from the cover. We got a killer cover. And you can also order the book through the website.
All right,
But you are the king of websites. I looked in my web browser for the top websites, and Art Bell is number one with a bullet.
Thank you. Is that a backslash or a forward slash?
I believe it's a backslash. I might be mistaken on that.
All right, so everybody be careful there. Try both. www.artquarter.com. And he says backslash. It might be forward slash.
I might be wrong.
And then Tampa Triangle. Okay. Well, I'm sure with a browser, you could probably go to Tampa. Just enter Tampa Triangle, and I bet you'd get it.
Hopefully.
All right.
Hopefully, maybe we could get linked up with you.
Well, had I known earlier about your website, you would have been.
Okay.
All right. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Captain Bill Miller. Hi.
Well, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Yes, Captain Miller, you talk about this fog off of Tampa Bay, correct?
I actually witnessed it off of Key Biscayne.
Oh, Key Biscayne, I'm sorry. Could this be attributed to, say, possibly air pollution and or a meteorological occurrence as well?
Well, I understand what you're saying. I monitor the meteorological conditions very closely when I'm out there. It's a natural part of the job. And I'm very experienced with fog.
Is there any magnetic interference or something like that too?
I'm not sure about the magnetic. We had radio interference and we had problem with our GPS.
And also, may I ask?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Since you're an agent of the government, don't they frown upon your book? I mean, no offense. It seems
no,
to be...
sir. I'm licensed by the United States Coast Guard. I have, just like you get a driver's license from your state.
All right, that doesn't make him an agent of the government.
Well, I'm a merchant seaman. But I thought being in the government or involved in the government per se, that they would frown upon a book like this.
In fact, I can't. A lot of my friends on the water have said, "Boy, we can't wait till your license goes up for renewal. You're going to have some fun."
Well,
I see. Well,
wait till the Coast Guard deals with you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to your book then.
All right. You know, he might be right. I mean, he really might be right. Somebody could take offense to this, and even though you're not an agent of the government, you certainly are licensed by the government. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Captain Bill Miller. Hi.
Hi, Captain Miller. I have a satellite question. I'm calling from Sonoma County in California. My name is Bruce.
Good evening, Bruce.
So how you doing?
Terrific.
Now, I got this, there's a guy, PhD, named David Allen Lewis. He wrote a book called UFO. Now, he started independent research. He's an archaeologist when Operation Blue Book started doing its research, the Air Force. But he relates one story in his book, and it talks about an unmanned orbiter that the Russians, the USSR, sent up that orbited Mars. And he said on the Malta Peace Accords between Gorbachev and President Bush, number 2 on the agenda was UFO discussions, and the Soviet Union was bringing to the table information that they had made contact on Mars. Their unmanned orbiter somehow was contacted by alien life forms, and after the message was transmitted, the whole system was shut down on their satellite, and they lost communication with the satellite, but they did receive the communication they were supposed to deliver. Have you ever heard anything so extraordinary?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. And, you know, recently there was talk about sending a mission up to explore one of the frozen oceans on one of the moons of Mars, I think it was, up there. And all of a sudden that got squashed real quick. I mean, they shut that down. I thought it was a great idea.
Actually, it was Europa.
Europa, right.
That's right. A moon of Jupiter.
Jupiter.
All right, here's another one for you, Captain. You're just not going to believe the quality of some of what we're getting in here. Dear Art and Captain Miller, my name is, and I'm going to eliminate it, and I'm a pilot for a major airline. Having been interested in aviation all my life, I have, over the years, compiled a nice aviation library. Most professional pilots, like myself, particularly enjoy reading the technical information like model development, test pilot reports, and so forth. While reading The Spirit of St. Louis by Charles Lindbergh, I came across something rather interesting in the log of the Spirit. After Lindbergh completed his historic Atlantic crossing, he and his airplane went on an extended tour of the U.S. and neighboring countries. The entire log of the Spirit of St. Louis is contained in the appendix of the book, and the entry for February 13th is as follows. February 13th, Havana to Lambert Field, St. Louis, Missouri, 15 hours, 35 minutes. Both compasses malfunctioned over the Florida Strait at night. The Earth inductor needle wobbled back and forth. The liquid compass card rotated without stopping. Could recognize no stars through heavy haze. Located position at daybreak over Bahama Islands, nearly 300 miles off course. Liquid compass card kept rotating until the Spirit of St. Louis reached the Florida coast. The Spirit made 2 more flights and then was retired to museum for life. I feel this gives a certain amount of credibility to the Triangle legends, and I think it's interesting that none of the authors of the Triangle books have ever, at least to my knowledge, mentioned this in any of their books. Thought you might find it interesting. He gives the name of his airline and his name, which I will withhold. Captain?
Sharp guy. He's a good researcher, too. And it's fun when you discover things like this. And certainly he's on the ball with that.
Boy, I had never heard that. And that is in the log of the Spirit of St. Louis. Anyway, another item, very quick facts. Captain, maybe these people who spontaneously combust have actually died and their souls have gone to hell. The intense heat of hell, if you believe in it, would explain how a human body, which is 70% water, could be consumed so quickly. And I think I'll just leave that one alone, and we'll go to the wild card line. You're on the air with Captain Bill Miller. Hi.
Hi, Art. How you doing? This is Tony in Las Vegas.
Hello, Tony.
Hi, Bill. I was curious if you had ever heard about 2 UFOs that were. I'll try to speak away from my phone a little more. Is that better?
You're doing fine, sir.
Okay. That were spotted over Santa Barbara in like 19. I believe it was
8 or something like that.
Would that be Santa Barbara in Florida?
No, California.
No, he wouldn't know about that, my friend. He's here talking about Florida.
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Oh, yeah, my phone's cutting out.
Oh, is it? Well, we're talking about Florida, and you're talking about
Okay,
Santa Barbara.
I do have a question about Florida. If he thinks that there's a time rift associated with the cloud that the Gulf Breeze sightings were sighted from.
Uh-huh. Okay, that's worth asking about. You, of course, know about Gulf Breeze.
Oh, sure. And what an exciting place that is, too, right now. An exciting place to be.
Where is Gulf Breeze with reference to Tampa, or is it just all of Florida that's weird?
Well, when you look at Florida, Gulf Breeze is up in the curve as you head towards Louisiana and Mississippi. It's up in that curved part of Florida, up in the Panhandle on the top up there. Tampa, of course, is further south, and it's on the west coast. It's on the Gulf of Mexico side. It's about halfway down the state. It's directly across from Cape Canaveral, Cape Kennedy, and the Bermuda Triangle area.
Maybe there's something just generally weird about Florida and the water adjacent to it. Who knows? East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Captain Bill Miller. Hi.
Hi, Art. I'm Dave, St. Petersburg, Florida. Yes, you've got us all.
Hi,
listening.
Dave.
I used to be a bridge tender back at the time when the boat that he was talking about that crashed into the...
Oh, you know about that?
To a certain extent, yes. I was... to give you real quick, there's a Bayway Bridge, which is like right across the channel basically from that bridge, and I could see the skyway from where I was at. And that particular morning, he was right. It was really strange how the storm came up rather quickly. But one of the interesting things that happened, there was a car with a couple of golfers that were heading toward Sarasota that particular morning, and they come to a screeching halt up on top of the bridge, just inches from the edge. And when they showed the pictures in the newspaper, here is this automobile. I mean, it's metal grating up there at the top was where the old bridge used to be. And these two golfers, they climbed out, and the only thing he did, he went back to get his golf clubs. He had them locked up in the trunk. And it was just kind of really amazing how just inches from himself and his partner going off the edge. And he used to run a story in the Times that this man, until he passed away, I believe, a few years ago, every year commemorating, the accident, he would go up there and leave flowers.
So basically, you verify the story the captain told about the collision and the bridge and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I have friends. I used to work for the Department of Transportation, and the friends that I worked for actually went out there and helped pull in many people who had passed on, and some of the people that were actually survivors that fell off the bridge. There was one incident where a man was driving a little pickup truck, and the roadway actually fell down onto the ship that hit the ship, and he bounced and actually survived.
Good heavens. So I guess, Captain, a lot of people down there apparently know about this.
Yes, the fellow that he rode the bridge down when the bridge collapsed.
He rode the bridge down.
He rode the bridge down in his little pickup truck. He's the only survivor of the people that went. He went out there every year on the anniversary and left white carnations for the victims. And when he passed away a couple of years ago from cancer, he was cremated and his ashes were scattered out there. That was his request.
First time caller line, you're on the air with Captain Bill Miller. Hi.
Oh, Art, I'm calling from L.A.
Okay, you're going to have to kind of yell into your phone. You're not...
Okay, I'm calling from L.A.
Much better.
About 10 or 15 minutes ago, someone called in about these 5 or 6 saboteurs that landed.
Yes.
And, he has it all wrong. They were just young kids, most of them American citizens that had been born in the United States, or they had been born in Germany but grew up in the United States.
Yes.
And they wanted to get back home. My husband was involved with one of them, Herbie Haupt, H-A-U-P-T. They ended up, they wanted to take a trip and see the world. They ended up in Germany, and because they were born there, they were drafted into the Army. And Herbie had a chance to go to a saboteur school in Germany. In Berlin.
Had a chance?
Well, yeah, to go back to the United States on a submarine.
Yes.
And my husband tried to talk him out of it. He said, "You're going to get caught and you'll be executed." But he said, "No, I'll disappear. Nobody will even find me." So he wanted my husband to go with him, and my husband didn't want to. But when he found out that he was going to be sent to the Russian front, he changed his mind. And he did go to Berlin, but by that time the school had been closed down.
My God, this must be the night for first-person testimony.
Yeah, but the reason Herbie got caught was because he went to my husband's parents' home in Chicago to let them know that he was okay. And and his parents were arrested because they didn't turn him in. In fact, they had been given the death penalty.
Yes. Well, he had that part of it right anyway. All right. Thank you very much. God. I don't know where everybody's coming from tonight, but you've touched something in them, Captain. Strange stories indeed. Again, the Tampa Triangle Dead Zone is available by calling, give the 800 number if you would.
800-929-7447. 800-929-7447.
All right. Stay right where you are. We'll be right back to you. To get a cop...
Done tonight.
All right, sir. Where are you?
This is Jim. I'm up in Saltville, Virginia.
Yes, sir.
Mountains in southwest Virginia. I had kind of a two-part thing here. The first part was one time I read a story about up in, I think it was on the Swanee River up in northern part of Florida. There were some sightings of some giant birds for a short period there. Some sort of prehistoric penguin or something. It was really a weird story I read, and I was just wondering if y'all had ever heard about that.
Captain?
Well, you're starting to get close to Gulf Breeze now.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it might be more than giant birds.
Yeah, well, like I say, it's a pretty unusual story, and of course I'm interested in the subject anyway, but the other thing I was wanting to tell you, this is a personal thing. When you was talking about ghosts earlier.
Yes, sir.
My father died 2 years ago in the VA hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Sorry.
And the day before he died, I drove up there and visited him for the last time, and the next morning I came home, and my mother lives here with me at the time, and she left at 3:30 in the morning going to work. But at 5 o'clock, something woke me up. I heard footsteps in my house, and I was the only one here. I'd already knew my mother had done gone to work. I'd heard her leave, and I went back to sleep. At 5 o'clock, I heard footsteps, somebody walking around in my house. Now, for some reason, it didn't bother me. It felt natural, and I dozed back off. And the phone rang at 20 minutes after 5, and it was the doctor at the VA hospital in Cincinnati called me and said my dad had died at 5 o'clock that morning.
Uh-huh.
So,
I appreciate the story, sir. Thank you.
Art.
Yes.
Let me ask you a question, and because this reminds me of something that I'm looking into now, and that is, does the body lose weight at the time of death if a soul escapes the body?
Well, I for many years, Captain, I looked and I looked and I looked and I searched. And there was a rumor of a medical report indicating that, yes, at the instant of death, there was a 3/4 ounce loss of weight to the physical body. And this story remained myth until a physician somehow, out of an obscure medical journal, found a medical study indicating this was exactly so and proved it in a medical study. And I posted that up on my website. Now, I'm sure it's still there somewhere. And I suppose if you go to the website and enter keyword soul or something like that, you might be able to find it. But the answer is, in one big medical study, yes, 3/4 of an ounce at the instant of death. And they go into all kinds of gory details about gases and things escaping the body, and they were very careful to scientifically be sure that none of that, which is what everybody always tries to say, had anything to do with it. So, you tell me.
Wonderful, yeah.
Wildcard line, you're on the air with Captain Bill Miller. Hi.
Yeah, this is Brad from St. Edward.
Yes, sir.
And guess what?
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. From where?
From St. Edward.
Where is that?
In Nebraska.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, here in the Big Plains. I had a theory on the spontaneous human combustion. You were saying that since the body was 98% water, water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen. If you did have a substantial heat source, you might be able to break those down, and I believe hydrogen would be a real good fuel source.
Okay, fine. But where do you get that kind of ignition temperature?
Yeah, well, what the other caller said earlier about the vibration setting up for you.
Yeah, it's as good. You're right. I mean, it's as good a guess as any.
Yeah, it's a good guess. And also, I guess on the theory of ghosts, has anybody ever? Somebody told me one time that their theory was that you can actually see ghosts, but your subconscious mind blocks it out because it's too horrific for the conscious mind to take.
Or the other way around. I would think it would be your conscious mind blocking it out, and your subconscious seeing it as if have you ever seen anything sort of at the edge of your peripheral vision? It's there, and then it's gone when you turn and look. Maybe something like that. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Captain Bill Miller. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, where are you?
Is that me?
Well, only you know that for certain, but yes.
I'm in Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
My name's Barb. My dad, I've got a great bunch of ghost stories for you. But I wanted to tell you, first of all, my dad's a retired security specialist out of Wright-Patterson.
Aha.
Area 51 or whatever that.
No, Area 51 is here in the desert, but Wright-Patterson is indeed a very unusual area.
Okay. Well, my dad was, he was kind of high up in Secret Service, so I can't say a whole lot. But he's retired and moved to West Virginia. And I had the privilege to live in West Virginia for 3 years with Dad and Mom in a remote area.
Yes.
And I can't begin to tell you the strange goings-on out there.
Well, you can begin.
Well,
give me an idea.
Well, I stayed in a trailer, and Mom and Dad lived in the house. The house is haunted. Okay, I won't stay there by myself.
No, not okay. I mean, haunted how?
It is. We hear footsteps at night. I've seen black shadows, and the girl that stayed there, she's seen 3 women at the back door, and she went out and they were gone.
That would do it.
We hear all kinds of things like doors opening. I mean, it's really. I'd be more than happy to give you a key to the trailer, and you can go out there and stay a week.
All right, thank you. No, thank you. Actually, Captain Miller, I was once very close. I was very interested in investigating ghosts, and I actually had an open offer to my audience. If somebody could actually invite me to a place where I could see a ghost, I was ready to go. I think that I've changed my mind about that. I might still do it, but, I really don't know if I would want to see something like that. Would you?
I don't know. It's pretty creepy stuff. There's no doubt about that. I personally haven't seen one, but...
No, I didn't ask that. I said, if you had an opportunity to go to a place where you could see one, where things were constantly occurring, would you make the conscious choice to go and see it, or would you think about it and stay away?
Oh, I'd go and see it.
You'd go and see it?
Sure.
All right. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Captain Bill Miller. Hi.
Good evening, Mr. Miller. And Art?
It's Captain Miller, and just plain Art.
Right. Hey, Art. Yeah, this is your fellow Gemini up there in Yuba City, California.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got a quickie little story Captain Miller probably might have heard of. You too should have heard of it. But a quick sidebar on that instant, what do you call it, combustion?
Yes, instant combustion indeed.
Okay, 1982, there was a gunpowder company. They invented something. It was for black powder enthusiasts. It was called golden powder. It was 99% biodegradable ingredients. When it was ignited, it was pure moisture. But since then, they've been bought out, and nobody knows whatever happened to them.
Huh.
So that got me to thinking, think about it for a second. That's,
All right, well, it might be. Spontaneous human combustion is actually the phrase, but it occurs apparently instantly. Captain, in the story you told us, was there any way to know how quickly that person immolated?
Well, she went to bed about, she was last seen, I believe, around 9:30 or 10 o'clock that night, maybe a little bit later by her son,
yes,
who gave her a sleeping pill. And then she was discovered the next morning around 6:30, I believe, 6:30 in the morning. So, interestingly enough, librarians are one of my favorite sources of information, and there's a librarian in St. Petersburg who told me about a second case of spontaneous human combustion. I looked it up in the files, and sure enough, there was another woman that spontaneously human combusted in St. Petersburg in 1968, the same night that Janis Joplin was ripping up the stage in Tampa and getting arrested for swearing at the cops. This woman spontaneously human combusted. So that was kind of interesting.
You're not connecting Janis Joplin to it, are you?
Well, they were both setting the town on fire. It's fun when you go back through the microfilm to see the different things.
Good to have a sense of humor, too. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Captain Bill Miller. Hi.
How you doing, Art Bill?
Oh, fine. Where are you?
I'm in Addy, Washington.
Okay.
I was in high school in a suburb of northern Chicago, Highland Park. Her parents went out of town. My girlfriend and I, the parents are out of town, the cat's away. We woke up 4 o'clock in the morning. I went to the bathroom. At 7 o'clock in the morning, we woke up and the bed was in the middle of the room. And I said, Tony, what's going on here? She goes, it happens all the time, all kinds of. She lived in one of the oldest houses in that area, which is right along the lake shore. She says, there's all kinds of stuff. She said, we eat dinner, we hear people running up and down. There's only 3 of us in the household. We hear children and noise running up and down the hallway.
I'd be out of there so fast.
Oh, no, I thought it was neat.
All right for you, all you people who love this kind of thing. I'm intrigued by it, but I don't know that I would go and seek it out. I might. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Captain Bill Miller. Hi.
Hi, thank you very much, and good evening to both of you.
Good evening. Where are you?
Seminole, Florida, and of course I'm about 20 minutes from Clearwater. I first have a comment and a question.
Sure.
First, the Mary picture that's on the finance building in Clearwater.
Yes.
Is quite realistic when you're actually there in person looking at it. Because,
you've been there. You've seen it.
Yes. Yeah. Of course, I had to take the chance, and it's still there right now. Actually, it's been there since just before Christmas.
Would you turn your radio off for us, please?
Oh, excuse me, just a second, sure.
It's quite all right. So that Marian apparition not only was there, but is there, remains there now.
Yes. And it looks quite much more human in person. Like I said, they're almost features, but it's not really. Doesn't have any facial features that are distinct. But it looks much more human in person.
Well, you heard, I think, what I said about it earlier. Let me ask you, caller, why do you think we're having so much of this now? What's your best guess?
Well, for those who, many messages come, or the messages come in many different forms, I suppose, and that touches a certain segment of the population, and I'm not Catholic, but I consider Mary quite important, and, that was something that was pretty interesting to see in person, because it's been there for so long, and it really can't be explained away as far as I can tell, because it is about 3 stories tall, and now they say that the finance building that it is on is going to be turned, into some religious building when they're through it, when the current occupants are done with it.
Well, I am not a Catholic. My wife is. But I can feel it. And I think most people can too. We're being sent a message. And obviously in that case, it was a big one.
Mm-hmm. And my question is, what are the coordinates for or the general coordinates for the Tampa Triangle?
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. Very good question. Captain, can you tell us that roughly?
That's a real good question. I get asked that a lot. I don't think you can put definitive boundaries on the paranormal or on a psychic atmosphere. It's not like a county line or a state line on a road map or something like that.
Yeah.
But pretty much the area of the most intense paranormal activity seems to be centered right around the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. And it extends up north towards Tarpon Springs and Cedar Key, and then as far south as Charlotte Harbor and Fort Myers.
East of the Rockies, actually. You're on the air with Captain Bill Miller. Hi.
Hi, Tim from La Crosse.
La Crosse, Wisconsin. Yes, sir.
Yep. Let me get this radio on.
All right. We don't have a lot of time here, so...
Okay. I just got a couple comments on spontaneous human combustion.
Yes.
Spontaneous human combustion in the East, I've heard it to be a yogi trick of death as far as to dematerialize your body. You send all your energy out of your solar plexus, and your body dematerializes. And also an interesting piece I read in a book was this guy who saw this National Geographic show, and he saw the Tibetan monks there steaming off wet towels, ice wet towels, sheets off their bodies using self-heat.
So you're saying they were generating that heat?
Yeah, and you can generate, you have a cold channel, a hot channel, and a neutral channel, 3 main channels that your energy can flow through. And I guess what they were doing was channeling it obviously through their hot channel. So.
All right, well, I appreciate that. I don't have the slightest idea what could cause a human being to spontaneously combust. It's beyond me totally. And I guess everybody will just have to think what they think. Captain, we're about out of time. Anything you want to say as a final word to everybody out there?
Real quickly, one of the most rewarding things about writing this book was a phone call I received the other night from a woman who runs a bookstore. She has 3 sons, the youngest of which suffers from attention deficit disorder.
Yes.
Here's a woman that owns a bookstore and can't get her youngest son to read. He won't look at books. He won't do anything. She finally gave him a copy of the Tampa Triangle Dead Zone.
And away he went.
He actually read it. He got an A, a book report, an A on his book report, and it's opened a whole... She said it's turned his life around. And then she started crying. For me, that was very touching.
So a motivational book as well, I guess.
So maybe it takes a different book, a little something different than Dick and Jane to get these kids excited and to turn them on. And
maybe it does. And if they want Tampa Triangle Dead Zone, they should call 1-800... I'm going to let you finish, Captain.
1-800-929-7447.
All right, my friend. I thank you for being here. I'm sorry we have but 3 hours on this program. Probably could have done much more. Captain, we'll have you back sometime. Thank you.
You're the best, Art Bell.
Take care. That's Captain Bill Miller. If you want a copy of this program, the number is 1-800-917-4278. That's 1-800-917-4278. Tampa Triangle Dead Zone. I'm Art Bell. From the high desert to wherever you are, good night. This has been Dreamland, a program dedicated to an examination of areas in the human experience not easily nor neatly put in a box. Things seen at the edge of vision, awakening a part of the mind as yet not mapped. Yet things every bit as real as the air we breathe but don't see. Please join us again next week at this time for Dreamland.